Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Oliver.
And today, Oliver and I are going to be sludging through Supergirl.
Yes, the cinematic turkey from 1984.
Oh, man, the year I was born.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how prophetic it is when movies like this come out the year you're born.
Well, I was born in 82, so that was a good year for cinema. So Blade Runner and The Thing and Tron, so I'm okay.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there's a few good movies that came out in 84, but then there was Supergirl. So Oliver and I are going to be watching the international cut, and not the director's cut, but this is the version, at least here in America, that most people probably have. You know, if anybody has this film. And if you're going to watch the film with us, go ahead and rig up your DVD or your Blu-ray, however you're going to watch it. And could you imagine a Blu-ray transfer?
Oh, there's no Blu-ray of Supergirl. That'd be quite interesting to see the quality.
Oh, is there not?
No.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay. Well, rig up your DVD because that's probably the only way you can watch this.
Or VHS tape.
Or VHS tape. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I've never said that. I should start saying that. Get out your old betas and get out your laser disc and get everything past the menus and everything. Or if you're watching a VHS tape, fast forward through the commercials. And get everything to timestamp 0. If you're not going to watch the film with us, of course, as always, you can listen to this as a podcast, and we will do our level best to provide some context for you while we're talking about this film. And I imagine this one is probably going to be a lot less pointing out just what's on screen and more just talking about this at large. But I mean, there will be that, but I think this one will probably be pretty easy to listen to as a podcast. And I imagine a lot of people will do it that way because, like I said, I don't know how many people actually own this film.
I'm sure there's some people who do own it, but they probably won't admit it, though.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Oliver, are you ready, man?
I am indeed.
Let's just jump straight into it, shall we? Everybody, please press play right now.
So, what did you think of the title sequence? Do you think it's very impressive? Do you think it's epic in any way, or does it fall flat?
I think after I think one of the last things we did was Superman 4, and after seeing that, this looks fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, the production values of this opening sequence is pretty impressive, but it's very slow. It doesn't have the energy of what you'd expect from Superman.
Agree with, yeah.
But it does.
But I do applaud the effort of at least trying to make it its own thing.
Yeah.
That they're not just doing the the same Superman titles they did before, and I mean, like, I think all the pinks is kind of a little bit silly because it does give you that vibe of it's a girl film, it's got to be pink.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I suppose it fits within that sort of 80s vibe as well, trying to aim it at like teenagers as well, and also, yeah, as you say, a female audience, but.
And the synthesized sound effects are pretty silly.
Yeah, it does sort of date it in a way, but also, I mean, it does have a really great theme tune, by Joey Goldsmith.
Oh no, I agree with you. The theme is great, but I think the theme is somewhat lessened by like every few beats.
Yeah.
Do we really need that?
No, probably not. I mean, I think it was just trying to be contemporary, wasn't it? Like, you get films like Lady Hawk, which had like an electronic score, then you had Legend, which had a different score from Jerry's original one. So it was trying to sort of, in that mid-80s moment of trying to be contemporary.
I haven't thought of that movie in a long time. Wasn't Lady Hawk a Donner film?
It was, yeah.
It's one of my wife's favorite movies.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films I definitely need to revisit.
Boy, I tried to sit through that once, and I didn't like it. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point. I don't even think I finished it, but I did not care for that movie.
Also, with Supergirl's production, it's got pretty much all the same people that were involved in the previous Superman films, and even you got like Lynn Stallmaster doing the casting again, who found Christopher Reeve. So I mean, this film is technically very sound. It's very confident. I don't think it looks cheap at all. There is possibly one or two.
There are some moments, and I think that part of the problem, it's misleading because it's got, like you said, the production quality is light years beyond the script, but also I don't think the director is always on his game in this, and I think he improved a lot as time went on because he's done a lot of TV work since then.
Well, yeah, he did a lot of Smallville, didn't he?
He directed a lot of Smallville episodes, and he directed some of my favorite Smallville episodes.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
And he's a pretty good director later on, but I think in this he got my guess is he got a little overwhelmed and didn't want to admit it. Like when you listen to him in the commentary, he's really proud of some of the hokiest things in this.
Really? Oh God.
Yeah. Well, he and you know I hate talking about a director commentary, but I'll mention this briefly. He talks about um the cardboard cutout that comes out of the
Oh
water
yeah.
and how like he you know tries to make it sound like they were being you know really resourceful in doing it that way, and it just looks really stupid. And and he talks about it like it like he's like I can't believe it worked. I'm like no it didn't work.
I mean, I mean, the visual design for her sort of home world, because they're supposed to be in inner space, aren't they, instead of
Yes.
outer space. It's the problem with this film. It tries to it gives you this backstory and these little small dumps of exposition, sort of basically to give the audience an understanding what's going on. But it's so lazily told, and you're not given an interesting background to them. They just go, "Oh, okay, we're in." You know, like for example, now, you know, he says, "Oh, we're in inner space and they're in outer space," and it just goes, "Oh, is that where my cousin went?" You know, back to Earth. And so it's just so it
And
tip
it's like, oh, let's move
it
on.
just
Yeah.
tiptoes over the most important parts. It just skips over, you know, the chances where it could be really interesting.
Well, and I think there wasn't enough attention on the fact that we've seen Krypton before, and we're gonna spend as much time or more time here as we did on Krypton at the beginning of Superman, and this needs to look
That's impressive, really, for
as
me.
impressive. Yeah, it doesn't need to look like Krypton. I'm not complaining that it doesn't look like that. In fact, I think the sets are kind of neat. But I also think that it could have been shot a little more lavishly. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but like I would have put some kind of filter on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, the DP on the film is Alan Hume, who did Return of the Jedi,
Oh
and
wow.
he went on to do like he did A View to a Kill, and then he did A Fish Called Wanda in '89. I think he retired in the mid '90s, but you know, he's a very good DP. And I think you're right about the visual look of the film. It does. I think the directorial style of this whole sequence is very TV-ish. It doesn't. There isn't any swooping shots of the camera or any sort of elaborate shots. I mean, it's got a
It looks a little Doctor Who.
well, yeah,
And
it's got the little bits thrown in. We've got the map shots to sort of extend this world, but apart from
yeah, I mean,
that,
like
it's
I said, I think the design of it is okay, but I would have tried to make it look a little more stylistic. And I think they did that with Krypton.
oh,
You
definitely, yeah.
know, like the you know the way they lit that and everything, it looked unreal. It looked more comic book.
It just looked epic, and this doesn't look
Yeah,
epic.
and this just doesn't. Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of get the feeling like right at the beginning of watching this that I'm watching kind of. It's funny because I feel like I'm watching the B Team, but I'm not.
Well, it's also kind
Isn't
of
that weird?
the visual design of the city as well. I mean, it does look good, but it feels like it's from the '70s. It feels like something from Logan's Run. It
Oh, yeah. Thanks for saying that. You're absolutely right. It does look a lot like Logan's Run.
it doesn't look ahead of its time. It doesn't look, you know, extremely creative in its design. It doesn't seem fresh. This seems very you've seen it all before in the '70s, you know,
That
sci-fi.
that was really lazy. The way
Oh, the wristband. Yeah, you see
the
it
wristband, yeah,
jumping. Yeah,
the way it appears, yeah, like they didn't even try to get her to stand in one place.
yeah,
She just suddenly she's moved. Yeah.
yeah. But as you said about John Swart, he kind of sort of laziness with his direction this one, or maybe seeing a bit overwhelmed with the scale of it. I mean, because he did Jaws,
That's what I can't decide.
he
Yeah.
did Jaws 2. I mean, Jaws 2 I think is actually a very good sequel to the original one. It doesn't obviously not as good, but he jumped on board on Jaws 2 at the last minute, and he saved that film and he made loads of money. So as a favour, for Universal, he got to do Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve, and I think Somewhere in Time is a very good film. It's very underrated as well. But with Supergirl, as you say, I mean, he probably is a little bit out of his depth on this, and because he went on to do Santa Claus the movie, I mean, that is actually probably more confidently made in terms of the first half of it, but the rest of it's a total mess, probably down to its script. But with this film, there is moments where he does shine, but the majority of the time, as you said earlier, he's very much out of his depth on this.
From the very beginning of this, we know we're in trouble with this omegahedron thing because as soon as you see a big spinning ball thingy like that, you know it's going to be the artifact that everybody's looking for the rest of the film.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
And this is a film that very quickly degenerates into just an artifact plot. That's basically the MacGuffin to get the movie going in the first place, and
Yeah.
that means that we're not gonna really get to explore the interesting things we could be with her character. I think one of the things I complained about when I reviewed this is that, and I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, is that I think the biggest problem with this movie is that it focuses far too much of its screen time on the villains.
It does, yeah. I mean, because you got, Faye Dunaway. You're gonna focus on her quite a lot. Because I mean, Helen Slater. I mean, in terms of acting credits, she'd had very minimal. She's done mostly theatre, and how the script is written, it very much caters for the villains. Um, and they don't, and it's in that retrospect, because the villains aren't that interesting. You're left with a sort of very TV-ish sort of structured plot. It doesn't work at all, and I think.
Yeah, I like that you say TV-ish. It does kind of feel like a direct-to-video
I mean,
kind of thing, doesn't it?
it doesn't really shine until it gets really to the Phantom Zone, and
Yeah.
when we get to that, I mean, because the ending of the film, when we get to it later on, is the most where they spent all the money. And also, apart from they built that town where all the destruction
Yeah.
happens later on,
Oh, yeah, that's
but they
right.
built all that in at Pinewood Studio, so you can see the excess amount of money they're throwing. This film cost like maybe 50 million, so it's just the same budget as Superman,
That's
but
crazy.
it doesn't look as expensive. And it's kind of like, why didn't they just shoot in another city in New York, but well, not New York, but in the States, to sort of give it that
Well, you
save
got
the
to wonder
money.
what went wrong then, because if they were willing to put that kind of money behind it, and again, get Faye Dunaway and stuff like that, I mean, clearly they weren't making this as some kind of like an obligatory thing, or like they were trying to cash in one more time on this
Mm,
name or something. Clearly they thought maybe they had the next hot thing on their hands.
possibly, yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think they probably all shot it, in the UK, in the town in the UK, to sort of keep control of it. So if you've got, units in other countries, it's hard to sort of, for the producers themselves to sort of keep control of the money. Um,
do you think maybe it's one of those things where like it was sort of like later Star Trek, like when you get into some of Voyager and Enterprise, where
hmm.
the same people are working on it, so they just got burnt out,
I think so. I
and
mean,
it,
they
it
lose the
became less.
enthusiasm for it.
Yeah, it became so much less about telling the story and so much more about just getting people to go to the theater, that they put that kind of money into it because they thought they needed that grand spectacle. But then even the spectacle is lessened by the fact that they don't really want to be there.
Well, yeah, I mean, when they made the effort to get a different writer, I mean, I was sick of the Solkines using David and Leslie Newman,
Yeah.
and they got David Odell, who worked with Jim Henson on the Muppets, and he'd wrote the screenplay to The Dark Crystal, which was
I was gonna say, as soon as you said that, I was like, this. There's a lot of stuff in this that reminds me of that
well,
movie.
yeah, Supergirl falls into that category, that sort of mid-80s sort of fantasy sci-fi, where you've got Krull, Supergirl, Dark Crystal, and Conan the Barbarian, or Conan the Destroyer sequel. It's all that sort of because Supergirl in the end, we got the sort of demon at the end. It doesn't come from that Superman universe. It feels very much from something from you know science fiction fantasy. So that's why I kind of lump it in with Krull as well, because it's made by the same people as well, same technical crew, and it feels kind of similar. You could put it in the same category as genre.
I think I was wrong earlier. I don't think we actually did spend as much time
No, you don't. We don't. We spend hardly any
there as
time
we
there.
did on Krypton. Yeah, you're absolutely
And
right.
in the director's cut, you get a few extra bits of dialogue, but this is not enough to give you enough feeling of that world. I mean, even the weird thing is when she travels from inner space to outer space. What I don't know why it implies you have to have this. When you come to Earth, you have the Superman-ish, the Superman outfit. But
Yeah,
when she sat in the little orb thing she got inside that transports there, the cushion itself has the sort of blue, yellow, and red design, very
yeah,
much like in Superman the movie, where that's what he's wrapped in.
that's what he's wrapped in.
That's
That's right.
probably what it's supposed to do. I don't know.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, are they implying that Superman was wrapped up in his costume? Because that would be a retroactive thing. Because he wasn't. Like we see the whole blanket.
Yeah, what's happened really with this film? Because Christopher Reeve didn't want to do it. He said he would, but then he bowed out quite late on into the production phase, before they actually started shooting, obviously. But it was written with him in mind. where Superman meets Supergirl when she arrives on Earth, and then they sort of, fly
Right.
around and stuff like that. And then Superman, during the course of the movie, gets ill, and Supergirl has to save him. But obviously, Chris said no. They had to do all these last-minute changes, and it has resulted in. It's just a complete mess of a movie because it.
Well, that explains all of it then, because I knew that Christopher Reeve had bowed out and that he was supposed to be involved, but I didn't realize that they had a script with him in it up to the last minute like that. Well, that explains everything.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of a bit of a disaster, really. And
Well,
it's
and it you get the sense maybe then that the people involved were sort of let down, that now they don't get to make a Superman spin-off movie. Now they're just making Supergirl without Christopher Reeve even in it. So like, the whole thing kind of degenerates after that, right? Like,
oh yeah, and then you got the idea that obviously, as you mentioned before, the commentary was Supergirl died in the comics that year. So you've got for comic book fans, she's been killed off. Then as a movie comes out, you're like, well, wait a minute, promotional wise, it doesn't really help the movie. And what made matters worse, because this film wasn't distributed by Warner Brothers. I think it was EMI and Thorn. It was like in the 80s, and I think it was a part record label and did movies as well. But for US distribution, the film was handled by TriStar, and they didn't like it. They cut, quite a lot of footage out. So and it bombed over there. And in the UK, it did okay. I mean, it even got to number one. But because of the cuts that were made, it didn't really help the movie at all, especially with the US, and when it's kind of aimed at them in the first place.
yeah, which is really unfortunate because we have to remember that once again superhero movies were not a genre yet, and Superman and well, we didn't have Batman yet, obviously. So I mean, Superman was pretty much it, and so we finally got another one, and yeah, it's set in the same universe, but it's also the first major female superhero we've had
Well, yeah, I mean,
ever,
it's good to have that. I mean, all they
and
really had was
it's
Wonder
sad.
Woman, wasn't it, in the 70s?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was a TV show, so it's really not. I mean, people love that show, but it wasn't. But we didn't have a big budget movie yet
No.
starring a female superhero, and at this point, granted, it's kind of a moot point. Like I said, nobody was thinking about the superhero movie as a even a subgenre yet. These were still action adventure fantasy films, but pseudo sci-fi stuff. But I guess the point I'm making is. This later on really sets the stage. I mean, it's really sad how pathetic this was,
Mm.
because every other female-led superhero movie we've had since the onslaught of superhero films have all bombed and have all been critically bashed.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
There's not been one.
I wouldn't find Supergirl to be incredibly awful. I mean, it's got its merits. I mean, they're not making fun of her. I mean,
No, no,
she's
no, no, no,
played
no,
well. I mean,
absolutely not.
it's directed in respect to the character, but it's just,
No, there's just no story
yeah,
here.
yeah. I mean, that's what it boils down
And
to.
in
Yeah.
fact, and that's what's kind of interesting about this movie. Is that you as an audience member, I find myself really disappointed that I don't get to spend enough time with her, because I would, a lot of people say the movie's crap, but Helen Slater's fantastic,
No, yeah.
and I would make the argument that she could have been known as fondly in this role as Christopher Reeve was. I think she's as good of a pick. She's basically a nobody, like Christopher Reeve kind of was when he started, and she can act.
Yes.
And like this flying stuff, it doesn't look fantastic, but she's selling it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's a wire work itself, we just saw a second ago, where it's all within camera, and she's doing twists and turns. It's quite complicated choreography, um, and she's sold it completely, and she's doing it herself. And then it goes on to this, because they didn't use the Zoptic system in Supergirl, because in Superman 1, 2, 3 they had the
Oh
Zoptic
yes,
effect.
that's right.
They had Derek Meddings. I don't think he was a fan of it, and he did a modified version with different lenses. So it's basically front projection still, but it's actually sold quite well in this film. I mean,
This stuff up in the clouds actually looks quite good.
I mean, with the effects, they still hold up. I think the majority of the time. I'd probably there's probably more creative shots in this than in some of the Superman sequels to a certain degree. They sort of the editing wise isn't as flashy. I think it's very much played to show the sort of elegance of Supergirl flying. Because she flies with her arms out, doesn't she? Sort of like towards her. It's all sort of dangling in midair.
Yeah, well, I think it's a cool move to have her land and immediately figure out she can fly because, at least in this context. I mean, I always think that's a little bit hokey, where it's like, it seems like you wouldn't be as good at it right away,
Yeah.
but just in that she doesn't get to see her cousin do it first,
Well, no,
and so she doesn't see how he does it, and so she has her own style, and
yeah.
it's effeminate. And I think that really works.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the place where she literally flies out of the water, it's the same location from Superman 3 where he freezes the lake and
Is it really?
yeah, and in Superman 2, where Zod and that they land and he rises up through the water and walks across it. It's the same location.
That's
I know.
hilarious.
It's just around the corner from like Shepperton, I think, or Pinewood, whatever. So getting a bit lazy.
Well, to be fair, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't notice it right away that it was the same place.
Oh,
But then when you said that, I was like, okay, so that's got to also be where Non is trying to fry a snake,
yep,
right?
yep.
And it is.
I mean, Faye Dunaway. I mean, I personally haven't seen many films with her in. I mean,
I haven't
there's like
either.
Bonnie and Clyde, famous ones, but I think at this point she became a bit obsessed with plastic surgery, or maybe it was later in the 80s because you see her now, she's trying to cling on to her youth, but it's not happening.
So we've got the creepy abandoned carnival cliche.
Well, yeah, it's like something out of Scooby Doo or something, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And like the way they've dressed all of this inside, I feel like is a lot like the crazy silly stuff they were doing with the Lex Luthor sets.
Well, yeah,
Until you get to all this silly mad science stuff.
yeah. I personally don't think
Ironically,
the production design is certainly not as strong as Superman's, and because it had John Barry, then it had what was his name? I haven't got the chap who did number two. Was Peter Merson or something like that? I can't remember now.
there
Um,
was
but I mean, it does its job, but it's not extremely memorable.
well, a lot of it is just because that character seems like a really silly, two-dimensional kind of stereotype. And I guess Lex Luthor was to a degree, but there was a charm to him.
Hmm.
And this villain, she's just not very captivating. There was this. I gotta mention this real quick. There was this box behind her in that kitchen that said "True to Light 7," and I want to know what that is. I don't know what that
I have
means.
no idea. I have no idea.
7 in Roman numerals. What is that?
But I mean, even
Supergirl is
now,
still
when
exploring.
Supergirl's flying across the city, I mean, I think it's really impressive. I think it still stands up because in my review of Supergirl, I mean, I made comparisons to this and the Rocketeer in terms of flying techniques because Rocketeer was kind of like 6 years later or 7 years later, um, and that had a sort of a puppet used to sort of fly around the Rocketeer in the sequences and the shot during the day. But with Supergirl, I mean, I felt Supergirl's technique of flying was a little bit more realistic. But Rocketeer, I
Yeah.
mean, Rocketeer, I mean, it's kind of is a lot more daring with its flying effects, but a lot of times it's just a miniature. So I kind of it's an argument in the sake where I kind of miss seeing actors doing it this way. I mean, nowadays they're replaced with a CGI counterpart, which
Right.
it looks okay, it does the job, but it doesn't look real to a certain degree. You don't believe what you're seeing.
Well, I am, now that we say that, and earlier I said that there was that wire work that didn't look great, and but then like here, that back off shot where she drops from several feet in the air, that looked fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this scene coming up where the lorry drivers turn up to sort of approach Supergirl and kind of try to get their way with her. Um, this bit was all cut from the US version, so it kind of made it even made less sense for her character. I mean, she has no introduction to humans at that point, just till she turns up at the school. But it's all, I mean, for Supergirl's first appearance to people, it feels like a B movie in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have, there's no scale to it. There's no, I suppose because they're trying to aim it at girls as well, or a younger audience maybe, or not treating it like adults would enjoy. I don't know. It just seems very downplayed, and it shouldn't be. And it should be something.
Yeah, and
It should be done epic.
the pacing even compared to the original Superman is really slow.
Yeah, it's glacial. It's super slow. But now, I mean, there's some shots here. You've got this sort of lens flare on some of the
By the
scenes.
way, I got to mention real quick that is Matt Frewer.
Is he from Lawnmower Man? Lawnmower Man
I
2?
don't know if
Is he
he
the
was.
sequel
I
or
don't know
something?
if he was in Lawnmower Man. I know Matt Frewer as Moloch from Watchmen. He
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was.
Watchmen, yeah.
Um,
Is he in Honey I Shrunk the Kids, like the dad next door?
oh, is he? I don't remember. See, that's the thing is he's a character actor.
Hmm.
He's been in all kinds of stuff. He's known mostly as, of course, as Max Headroom.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And my favorite thing he was in is a TNG episode called A Matter of Time.
Ah.
He plays this role that was originally meant for Robin Williams, but he's hilarious in it. He plays a time traveler.
I mean, this whole scene with her taking on the thugs, it's just a sort of quick attempt to show some more extra powers, but it's sort of a bit clumsily done, really. I mean, the weird thing is, Supergirl does not have an epic introduction to the
No,
public. I mean, there's the part in the city coming up where she saves um, the guy from the big what was it, big giant tractor or whatever it was. It kidnaps him in. It but that's it. But the public don't really get to see her. She's sort of whizzing past at top speed. So it's all kind of downplayed. Her presence is downplayed throughout the entire film. Like no, like they don't want anyone to know she's there.
yeah, that's a really good point. Like nobody notices that she's even around. Whereas, when Superman first shows up, it's a
It's a,
big deal.
yeah,
And I think part of that is how he's introduced. Also, right? It's like with him, he's Clark Kent first and Superman later.
yeah,
And with her, she just shows up and she's already Supergirl for no good reason.
yeah.
And also, I have a really tough time given the wardrobe at the beginning that like they have that suit just lying around.
I know because there's no explanation to it. I mean, it just sort of
I
happened.
mean, again, it's Kryptonian. I guess we're supposed to assume that for some reason everybody in that family has superhero
Well,
suits.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but sometime between Krypton and Argo City, they got really boring in the way they were clothing
yeah,
themselves.
definitely. I mean, this whole sequence here with Peter Cook and Faye Dunaway. I mean, the beginning of the scene, they had this pop music by Howard Jones called "What Is Love." And he's an '80s pop star. And he's still about today. I've seen him a few times live. And there's two of his songs appear in the film. There's New Song, which is later on in the restaurant with Jimmy Olsen, and now is What Is Love. But I don't think he was particularly happy how they sort of it didn't do much promotion for the song for the film that was included with it. No music video was done. I think this was because it was done. I think there's a sort of deal with EMI and Warner Music Label because he was part of Warner Brothers Music Label, so they sort of used it as promotion. You use it for free, I think. Um, but because of its trying to appeal to younger audiences at the time and be contemporary, it's got like 80s pop music, very much like Superman 3. We've got Giorgio Moroder doing music for Superman 3, like the instrumental stuff. And it's barely in the film, it's just a bit of a joke, really. Um, but yeah, it's interesting they threw that in. But Supergirl probably has the best pop music thrown in because Howard Jones's songs for it are actually pretty good. It was actually the good scene is when Peter Cook shows Faye Dunaway his cigarette lighter, and you see the demon from the Phantom Zone in the reflection. As a kid, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty scary. That's really well done." It's sort of building up what's going to happen later. So I quite like that moment.
So it's been a while since I've seen this. Is the deal like she taps into the Phantom Zone with magic powers she has already?
Um, Well, no,
is that the
because
deal? Like, is she just a sorceress? Because she's got all these magic potions and stuff.
yeah. I don't. I mean, it's quite. At the end, she has a book, doesn't she, with all those magic spells, and in there, and you
Yeah,
can have the Phantom Zone. So it's kind of implied that the magicians or whatever, magical,
that
wizards
they're tapping into some kind
are
of
aware
science.
of the Phantom Zone to a certain degree. I don't know. I think that's its biggest problem. It's kind of I don't know.
It's just ambiguous, but it is. I gotta give them, at least if they're gonna go this hokey magic direction. At least it's like they think it's magic, but it's actually kind of science, but they don't realize that. Like,
yeah.
that's better than, I guess, than just we suddenly introduced like sorcery into this universe when we had not seen that for 3 movies.
Yes, yes, that's right. I mean, that's why I lump it into that sort of that genre with Krull and stuff. It's all that magic and stuff, and that's what Superman never really had. And this feels even though it's a spin-off, it feels different in a way to Superman.
And now we're gonna do that thing we started doing in Superman 2, where Kryptonians apparently could just make up whatever power they
I
need.
know this is the weird thing. Even as a kid, I was like, "What? How did she do
Yeah,
that?"
me too. But I felt the same thing about that watching the original Superman, where where like he's
I know
flying
because
into the air,
we'd argue
and then
before.
suddenly he's wearing the Superman suit. Like no, the clothes should shed
I
off. It doesn't
know, I
make
know.
any sense.
But because we argued last time on the other commentaries, I just like it because it looks cool. But but in this, it makes no sense, obviously. But in
Oh,
the
this is a good.
it's
Sorry, go
just
ahead.
makes it even her hair changes different color. It's like what?
How does she do that? That's amazing.
More
And
magic.
isn't that a little bit sexist that she has that she has that power?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like she has this ability to, like, change her wardrobe and do her hair and
I know.
stuff. Really? Like, what's her next power gonna be? Pancake flipping in like rapid spin? No, like that's there's a little bit of that gender stereotyping here, but I guess you have to expect some of that in 1984.
Yeah. This whole school is shot at a private school for girls in the UK. So this is not filmed in America. It's all done in the UK. This whole school. And this school is still about because I actually contacted the production designer
Of course you did.
about a month ago, and I asked him if it was at this at this specific school. And he goes, yes, it's still there. And I think because in the school itself, the school is quite old, but this part they shot at is a newer block. I think it's a science department, so it's still there. So I could, me and my friend were trying to see if we can find it and still visit it. Um,
Oh, that's cool.
but yeah, so it's it's still hiding. It's trying to give away the fact that it's in America, but it's clearly not. They do a better job in this than in Superman 4, which tries to hide. Oh, this is actually in America. No, it's not. It's in Milton Keynes.
They are trying to be kind of faithful to the comics. They've got, she is Kara Zor-El. There, or I don't know if, well, she's Kara. I don't know if Zor-El is ever in there, but because that guy at the beginning, I don't think is Zor-El, is he?
Um, uh, I'm trying to think actually. Isn't her dad? Her dad's Zor-El.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess so. Like I said, it's just been a while. I couldn't remember if that was
That's
actually
that's
Zor-El or
that's
not.
Jor-El's brother,
Um,
isn't it?
and then Linda Lee is also comic book, and I always thought it was funny that she comes up with yet another double L,
Yeah,
having not met Lex Luthor, Lana Lang, or Lois Lane.
I know, I know. I mean, is that just sort of just thrown in to sort of? Do you think it's lazy in that way, or is it kind of done to just sort of wink or nod at the other characters?
I guess that's what it is. And now that I say that, I don't think she was Linda Lee in the comics. I thought it was Danvers.
No, I don't have a clue. I mean, because I never read any of the comics as a kid of Supergirl. I mean, there wasn't any really. I mean, because when I was a kid, when I started reading Superman comics more frequently was when the death of Superman sort of kicked in, and Supergirl was a shapeshifter.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, so what they did there, I don't know why they did. I guess they just thought they were being clever and cute with the double L thing, cause they had the dean named Danvers,
Right.
or is the or well he says Danvers. Reading that letter. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen this. Um, That's weird.
Yeah,
I don't know why they did that. Yeah, he's Mr. Danvers.
and it's like really convenient
But
actually.
in the comics, she's supposed to be Danvers.
It's
Okay.
also
And then yeah, this is super convenient. Now she's gonna room with Lois Lane's sister.
yeah,
Another double L to
yeah.
boot.
It's
All
oh
right.
yeah, it's like as a kid, I was like, that's a bit
What are the
weird, you
odds?
know. I wasn't.
And then of course she's gonna have a Superman poster on the wall,
It
and
is quite frankly the best poster of Superman. I think it's the one poster I always wanted, but they never. I think
they never released it.
there were like one or two teaser posters for Superman the movie with that him posing, pointing in the air, but there wasn't anything really printed that often of that image, which is kind of annoying because it's like the most iconic image of Christopher Reeve, I think, and it's the best bit in the film, isn't it? When she sees the poster.
But yeah, that kind of coincidence is always really irritating. Because it's like, I guess they're playing up some kind of, stupid pseudo fate thing.
Yeah.
Well, these are the important characters, so they have to be. I mean, I will give them. It's cool that they got Lucy Lane in there, I guess, because she hadn't been in the other films or even mentioned, as far as I'm aware.
No, she's never been mentioned. No, I mean the only time I sort of she was mentioned as a kid, I remember, was in the Dean Cain TV show.
Well, she's in that show,
Hmm. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, but
Doesn't she like she fancies Jimmy, doesn't she? Like as well in
yeah,
the
that's right.
TV show.
That's right. But then they don't like so she's in this. I don't think at any point do they ever reference her
I
father.
wonder what comic she's reading as well. I never figured out what she
I
made.
was trying to figure that out while we were talking. Yeah, I couldn't get a good. It looked Marvel.
It could have been like the movie adaptation of Superman 3 comic. Oh my god, this just happened.
I don't think there is also really any explanation as to how she knows that Superman is her cousin.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I guess she knows he's there, but just like
yeah, I know what you mean. It's just full
I
of
don't know,
just
it
plot
seems a
holes. It's just
little
full of plot
it
holes.
seems a little awkward, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. The music here, though, for this sequence, when she sees the poster, I think it's a great musical cue. It kind of remember you can kind of have the sort of Superman theme in it, but it's kind of changed
Right.
very very cleverly by Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah, and if you can't get John Williams, Goldsmith is a really good second choice.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I love
I think
Goldsmith.
Goldsmith's probably done just as good scores as Williams. I mean, I
Absolutely.
mean, even though he's done probably more dud films, as it were. Like,
That's
but
true.
even if the film is bad, his score is amazing. And
Yeah, and
I think he said before that a good score can't make a bad film good, but it makes it more bearable. That's all I can say. On the computers in the scene where aren't they the same ones using Superman 3? I think they might be the
they
same.
sure look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Goldsmith created the Star Trek the Motion Picture theme,
Yep.
which then
That's my
which then
favorite.
became the Next Generation theme, and he did a lot of those soundtracks
That's right.
for Star Trek.
The weird thing is, with regards to the Star Trek stuff, I mean, I think he's my favorite score by him is Star Trek Insurrection. Even though the film's a bit naff, but
Yeah, it's not a good
I
film,
love
but
the
he
score.
he did Nemesis.
Yeah, that's a really good
And
score as
Nemesis
well.
is terrible, but the score is great.
Yeah,
I think he did
yeah,
Nemesis.
he did that with his son as well. He sort of collaboration.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I think because Joe's was in bad health at the time.
So just all of these kind of cliches because we're doing a film about a female superhero as opposed to a male one. Of course, we have to have a female villain, which isn't by itself a terrible thing necessarily if you do
No,
something interesting with it, but just we haven't had Superman go up against any women, so it seems a little blatant. Immediately, again, it wouldn't seem so much that if there weren't all these other stereotypes,
yeah,
including love
yeah,
potions.
yeah, yeah. Oh, he's
No!
got great old Hart Buckner who's in Die Hard, and actually Hart Buckner's now a director as well. He did a couple of comedy movies.
That guy looks like he could have played Wolverine.
Oh, easily. Probably not as well though. But wouldn't it have been interesting if the villain was a man and that Supergirl found him attractive, but she couldn't turn him good. It could that sort of friction between, like in Labyrinth, where she kind of finds David Bowie's character attractive, but he's the bad guy stolen her brother. So you could have had this more of a conflict between them instead of having love potion. It's also interesting in a way because you got Peter Cook in this version, also in Supergirl, but in Santa Claus the movie, you got Dudley Moore. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore were a comedy duo in the 80s. And it's quite, and I'm not sure why they chose Peter Cook. I mean, obviously, because it's obviously UK based and sort of, trying to find maybe sort of lighten the mood of the film, have more comedic actors thrown in. Um, he seems to, I mean, and Peter Cook's pretty much funny in most things he's involved with. But
Yeah, he's a little creepy here and
yeah, of
there.
course he is, yeah. But I think he probably provides the best laugh down to his sort of dry, humor.
Well, he reminds me a great deal of David Warner.
He does a little bit, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Six-dimensional geometry. That's kind of funny. I mean, she really is selling this. She does kind of have a little bit of that, not to the same degree, but she does have a little bit of that Clark Kent versus Superman thing going on.
Oh, of course,
Where
yeah,
she's trying to develop a persona, and I think she does a good job with it.
Oh god.
Except it's wonderfully different in that she's so like new to this, and she didn't grow up on Earth like Clark did. That like she's super alien, and so I think she's trying to create these different personas, but it's not really working.
No, because it's doing it all too quickly. I think it needs to be more time with her trying to sort of blend in and understand what's going on. And
No, I completely agree with you, but at least in with what they're doing, they have her just kind of blatantly say stupid stuff
oh
that
yeah, yeah.
you really shouldn't say.
Yeah.
The whole six-dimensional geometry thing, and
Yeah.
she answers a question in the classroom. Oh, on Earth. Well, yes, of course, Earth. That's where we all live. That kind of thing. But like I said, I do think she's attempting to make a different kind of
Yeah.
persona for herself.
Just earlier on, we had the scene where she's playing hockey with the girls. I mean, I used to play hockey at school, and playing up against women, they just hack your shins with the hockey sticks. God, it drove me nuts. Just hated it. I absolutely hated it. It's one of those things you're forced to do it at my school. You had to play rugby, you had to play hockey. Even though you couldn't get out of it, even if it's freezing cold, you got to do it. And I was like, oh, I detested it. Also, it's quite interesting because with a superhero, they've animated
I was going to
figures.
mention
Like
that.
in the
Yeah,
Superman 3, they do it, but I think in this actually they've improved the technique. It looks a bit better, a bit more polished.
well, I thought the X-ray vision was interesting too,
Yeah.
and is really different. Yeah, they're trying to improve on some of
But
those effects.
it doesn't make sense though, this whole scene, because she sees through the wall. What, her
Yeah.
lasers shoot through the wall and heat the piping? I don't get it. It's really weird how they've done it.
Well, she does X-ray vision first and then heat vision second.
I don't. You'd sort of melt a hole and you'd melt through the wall, wouldn't you? There'd be loads of burnt tiles.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. I thought you just meant they didn't do an effect for the
Oh,
heat
sorry,
vision. But they
sorry.
did.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. No. You're right. That doesn't make any
No,
sense.
it
But
doesn't.
I guess with some of this, I sort of get used to it not making sense.
But this bit here, she said earlier, where she says the wrong thing, but she now puts on Lucy's bra on the outside of her jacket, then stuffs it with socks, and that's really funny. That's really sort of trying to show how completely out of this world she is.
Yeah. At the same time, it seems a little short circuit to me. Like we had a lot of other things at the time where you have like a kind of alien trying to figure out how to fit in that does a gag really similar to that.
Oh yeah.
I think it's maybe kind of stealing from other stuff. There's a little bit of Alf in this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's not. I think the gag works. It's kind of, you know, it worked in that. Let's try it in this, and I think it works. But it's
I don't understand why she stuffed socks in it. Like what did she see that makes her think that that's what you're supposed to do with that? I guess something's in the locker room. I don't know. I'm confused about that. Like what do you think that is for? Well, anyway. I'm not going to analyze that any further, Oliver. I'm done trying to figure that out.
It's like girl, you like call out girls when they were 12 trying to stuff tissue down their bra. You ain't fooling no one.
So, how hard do you think it is to shoot stuff in Europe and try to make it look like you're in America, right? Because I mean,
Uh,
like you got to make
yeah,
everybody drive on the other side of the road,
yeah.
there's just a lot of details you'd have to
You
you'd
do.
have to
You have to shoot. You
pay
have to
attention to,
shoot.
and I'm sure you being who you are, you could probably point out to lots of things in different movies where they missed something where like a plate like a license plate is still in it still looks like a European plate or they're
Hmm.
driving on the side of the road or something like that.
Well, when it comes to like American films, when they try to sort of, majority of the time they generally do shoot in the UK because due to they've got the money to do it, but
Yeah.
it ends up looking like a picturesque sort of hallmark card of London.
Oh, okay.
It's what tourists expect London to look like. So you've got
Right.
you've got the the telephone boxes, you've got the taxi cabs, and you've got shots of Big Ben, Parliament, and things like that. And when it comes to trying to replicate America in the UK, which is very difficult because you don't really have much of a skyline, you don't have any huge skyscrapers. You've got a couple, but nothing on the scale of New York or in Chicago. Um,
Yeah.
so what they do is kind of I think they most of the time have to shoot it in the summer to sort of show some good, nice weather instead of it being cloudy and miserable. But you end up they've got the cars and they end up having to sort of in the background having all the vehicles to sort of showcase it's America, like the yellow school bus. They always have that in a film, like the fire hydrants and things like that. So it's
Yeah, do you guys have yellow taxi cabs there?
no.
Yeah, because there was a yellow taxi cab in that scene too.
There you go.
They got to really try to milk it so that we won't think that they're in.
I remember in the commentary. I remember hearing that. I think that all
Why
the
don't they just shoot it here? I don't really understand that.
it's like at the time with Canon when they were shooting stuff because when Canon bought Elstree Studios and they bought all the cinemas as well in the UK in the 80s and they were pretty much they're the basis of operations in New York and UK and they're shooting if they're shooting stuff in the UK for like the studio base they want to keep everything in the UK so they've got complete control and that's what's happened with this and what later happened was with Santa Claus the movie. A lot of it's shot in the UK. Um,
That is a really interesting film, by the way.
yeah, Santa Claus. The first 45 minutes are really good, and the rest of it's junk. To be honest,
Yeah,
it's weird. It just
seriously.
falls apart halfway through. It's like
One, it feels a little cynical and it's kind of creepy and
yeah. It just
yeah,
goes. It's like a fine line. It just goes. Just drops off and just like it's bad.
it's another one of those movies too where like the main actor is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. But there's a
Selena.
bit earlier when
Really you've never seen the word Selena before? Okay.
when she grabbed the
You don't read
spider.
Catwoman comics?
When she grabbed the spider earlier off the web, I suppose she did it all for real herself, but all the crew were so freaked out when she just grabbed it off the web and put it in the thing.
Yeah,
They were just spooked out.
yeah,
I
I've
could never
heard
do
that.
that. I could never touch a spider.
Well, and that's what's weird is like everybody's kind of throwing themselves into their roles in this movie. Like I think a lot of the actors think there's something here.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't get the feeling from the people performing in this movie that they know what a dud they've got.
Well, yeah, because Superman 3 did well. I mean, it didn't bomb at all. Reviews were mixed, but it made a lot of money.
Yeah,
So Superman obviously 1 and 2 made a lot of money. So they already know going in, it
they're
should be
in a
popular.
proven
And
franchise, and
yeah,
even though they don't have Christopher Reeve, it's still the Superman universe,
yeah,
and they've got big name stars, and some of them are big name stars.
yeah, and you've got a huge budget, and yeah, everyone's probably saying, oh yeah, this film's gonna be really good, and you're doing so well, blah blah blah, and they all wrapped up in their own egos and thinking, oh, it's gonna be great, but they're completely unaware that the script's a dud, and I'm sure they just went maybe just well, it's for kids. Don't worry about it. You know.
I think it's just really silly that they're all worried about trying to like pay the rent on this carnival and stuff like
I
that.
know.
Like really, I would figure that your bad guys would be operating like hiding out at a place that nobody knows where they are. Apparently, they legitimately own this place. If that's the case, why don't you just open up for business and make a legitimate living like normal people?
It's like the episode of South Park where like Cartman buys that amusement park and won't let anyone in, and then all the rides break, so he has to open up to let all the customers in, so he can pay for it to all the rides to be repaired, and he gets sick of it. So it's yeah, I mean she could save her money, well, make more money by opening
Make
up.
more money. Yeah, I feel like the movie was really slogging, before this, and it's not really latching onto anything. It's like, okay, so I guess right now the main story that we're supposed to be latched onto is Supergirl showed up on Earth and is trying to find a place, and that's about it. Like how far are we in this? I mean, we are 50 minutes in, and
Yeah,
we haven't really started chugging along with a story yet, and then I feel like now it's just sort of meandering. Like you have a villain, we know she has magic powers, we kind of showed that she can be sort of menacing in a really strange, cartoony, goofy way, and now she's trying to make this random hot guy fall in love with her. Like, what are we doing?
yeah. I mean, it's maybe the writer David Odell probably thought this would appeal to teenage girls, and he's probably did a little bit of research, watching TV shows that will probably be of interest to them, and kind of use maybe similar plot points or been inspired by a number of TV shows he's watched and translated this into the film. And it's not working at all. It doesn't work on a cinematic level, and it doesn't really appeal to a wider audience.
Well, and I just, in a broader sense, I don't even know what's going on, really. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why I'm supposed to care about any of this.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, as a kid, when I watched this, and I've seen it obviously a number of times, um, I always, I found myself fast forwarding through these bits. I mean, the
Yeah.
parts when Supergirl does show up, the action's executed pretty well, the effects are pretty cool, and they got nice, in camera stunts going on.
Like, was this all just an excuse so we could do the Carnival Haunted House? Is that why this was here?
I mean, possibly.
Like, why are we suddenly from this guy's perspective? Who cares about this guy?
Well, you suppose,
You,
but
I'm just
they
saying,
want you
like,
to care for him because they want there to be some sort of hokey sort of love triangle going on between
well,
her
I
and
get
Supergirl.
that, but like, they don't develop him as any kind of interesting or relatable kind of character, and
No,
so like,
he's just a
pretty
jock.
much the majority of he's just a jock. So pretty much the majority of the film where we see him, he's just brainwashed, and so who cares?
Yeah. And he's played for laughs as well. So he's not, shown to be a bright spark. He's not like super intelligent. He's not like he's just playing a guy who's, attractive to, Selena and Supergirl.
Yeah, and I think that makes both him and the villain kind of ultimately insulting for our main character, because it's like this is what she gets to deal with,
Yeah.
like she's gonna fall in love with that guy. Okay, it's hard to have a great deal of respect for that, and then with your villain, you'd love to see her go up against somebody that seemed like a worthy adversary,
Yeah.
and like thematically, I think what would have been smarter would be to have somebody that kind of challenged her innocence,
Yeah.
because that's really the only thing I know about her, and the only thing that I'm finding kind of relatable and resonating when she shows up is she thinks she's found this wonderful, lush, gorgeous planet where everybody at first seems to kind of be cool and get along, and then like slowly she's starting to discover that things are not that nice, and that human beings can be very cruel to each other. And I feel like that would have been the direction to take this,
That
because
would
that's
have been
kind of
very
where they
good,
started
yeah.
with it, you know. And that's not really what they did. I mean, like, she kind of immediately sees the kind of gritty side of Earth, and then they don't do anything with that, you know. It's like, and then like the very next thing that happens is she like wakes up and sees a bunny rabbit,
But
and
yeah, because
then
the gritty side of it all does just seems really out of place, doesn't it? It doesn't seem to fit the tone of the film.
no, it really doesn't. So it seems like those two things needed to somehow be married to create more of a cohesive piece.
Yeah,
And like like I always say, I'm not trying to rewrite the film. That's obviously not what they're doing, but it sure feels like that would have been the direction given what they started with. You know, with all of those scenes of her like flying around and seeing the majesty of this new planet. You know, we get to see our planet from her eyes, and it seems like a wonderful place.
yeah. Well,
You know, and then
it's
once she finally sees like what you said, the grisly side, they don't do anything with it. She still has it seems to me the same kind of innocence.
yes.
Doesn't do anything to her, and I think it should.
The weird thing with this film is I don't think the director or the writer really understand their audience. They don't understand because it's supposed to be aimed at girls primarily,
Yeah.
and they don't understand the female audience. I mean, it's very, as George Lucas once said. I think he said, if you can make the perfect film aimed at girls, you'd make billions, because it's difficult to sort of particularly aim films at a female audience, and without it, leading to sort of, the cliche sort of like sort of teen movies, as it were, the teen rom-com sort of thing. Um, but with being an action film and trying to aim at girls, it's difficult. It's very difficult, and it's one of those. One of my friends was studying at film school, and had, the idea was brought up with men go to the cinema when they see action films to sort of to see obviously see the action, but also in their mind try and pretend they were them on screen. So you've got this,
Yeah, they're
um,
looking for role
yeah,
models.
role
Yeah.
models. But when you see a girl on screen doing the action to a certain degree, like with things like superhero female characters, that appeal was kind of lost, because you're a guy, you can't pretend to be the woman on screen. You get it, and you don't, and the idea of a man being saved by a woman, and then for girls, they go to see the film because they want to see the man on screen, but to see another girl on screen, that translation may be lost slightly in terms of the appeal of wanting to be them. I don't know. I think men see the idea of pretending to be someone else on screen more of an interest than girls.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't want to stereotype. I
Well,
don't know
yeah,
that that's
I'm
totally
not saying it's sort
true,
of
but
stereotyping, but it's kind of the theory was why so many of these sort of female superhero characters are failed on screen, especially.
yeah, and there's some truth to that, but I mean, I like to take everything on a case by case basis. I think
Yeah,
ultimately the problem is in trying to gear something toward a particular audience. I think you tell a story, and then it automatically appeals to the people it's going to appeal to.
of
That's the
course,
risk.
yeah,
That's the risk you take. And so what they should have done with Supergirl is try to figure out naturally what they thought this character would be like, and then make that movie.
mm,
And it would appeal to who it was going to appeal to. And I think most it might have appealed more to women than men, because because women would see it and they finally get a superhero that they feel like they can, like you said, pretend like they were, or identify with. But then men could see the same movie and be like, well, it's a great action movie, and it's just another really good action hero.
yeah.
Like I think we've proven now, and of course back then it was tougher because there wasn't as much, but we've proven now. I mean, there are as many male Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans as there are females.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
And
know what I
also,
mean? Like
you
that
have to
that
take,
worked. I mean, Wheaton has proven to us time and time again that we can get men to sit through a movie where they don't have to pretend like they are the main
well, that's what I think.
character.
I think that with things like Buffy, I mean, the creators of Buffy really know their audience. They knew how to aim it at male and
But
female.
that's what I'm saying. I think they created an audience.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah,
don't think they
yeah.
were aiming
It's
it at anyone. I think they created an audience. I think Whedon made something that he wanted to see and hoped to God that there were a bunch of people out there like him.
yeah,
That's the
that's true. That's
distinction.
true. I mean,
I'm with you from earlier. I think it's so weird that they had to build this whole town.
yeah. I mean, just, I mean, it looks great. They spent a
Yeah,
lot of
it
time on
does
it,
it does
and
it does look good.
there's a point.
It reminds me a lot of Superman 2, though.
Yeah,
You've got
yeah,
another
yeah.
tiny town that's getting totally
To be
obliterated.
honest, it's probably the same location. It's all Pinewood. There's a point coming up. I think you might have missed it, actually. Yeah, because he tries to get inside one of the buildings. The door's locked, and it smashes through a bar. I think it might be now, actually. If you look at the background, you can see one of the boom mic operators right in the background.
Oh wow,
So it's a bit of you can see the crew. Yeah.
that's funny.
Um, but yeah, I mean,
There,
it's quite a cool, elaborate, sequence. This is going to be the first time Supergirl really shows herself to the public, but the public don't really see her in
well, Oliver, they were just in there interviewing the owner of that shop. That's all. That's all. They were just doing a news interview. I really think, like we were talking about earlier, that we could have introduced Lucy Lane in a less contrived manner, and at least in bringing in Jimmy Olsen, it sort of follows because at least they would know each other.
Well, Jimmy's kind of like, the actor Mark McClaw said, should I reference Superman? Should I talk about Superman? And they go, no, 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 this is her own movie. The producers were like, on the director said. So
Oh, interesting.
so Jimmy, Mark McClaw was like, why am I here? What am I doing here? It's just trying to
I
link
think
it.
he's just there to yeah
Yeah.
to provide some kind of link. That's exactly what I was going to
And
say.
then when Lucy,
Just to give it some credibility. But the problem is he doesn't get to do anything more than he ever has before.
oh yeah, yeah,
Not
he's kind
really.
of wasted again. He's just he takes a few photographs and gets um, kidnapped later on or thrown into the back.
Here's an idea. If you've got it to kind of turn that old cliche on its head, right? Where we have a guy that gets kidnapped. Ooh.
Yeah.
If it had been me, and not taking that to its furthest extent, but if it had been me, I might have, and I'm not just saying this because of Smallville, but like I might have, if you had to have a love interest, let it be Jimmy.
No, yeah, that would work.
Like he's here anyway.
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, also at the beginning, it's implied that Lucy does like Jimmy. Um, but
Right.
I mean, also
But you didn't need
throwing
her in this
Lucy
movie.
in
We
to
could
be.
have.
They've got Lucy to
Well,
be like Lois as well, which she's tried to.
that's what I'm saying. We didn't need her though. We could have just had Jimmy come in this
Oh yeah.
and not ever brought Lucy Lane in. Like if we're gonna shoehorn somebody in anyway, it might as well be Jimmy over her.
Oh yeah, because the audience are already familiar with Jimmy. So
Yeah, exactly. You've got to introduce Lucy Lane and and in a really awkward sort of way.
hmm, it's quite interesting when
And
Linda.
she triumphantly stands upon the Popeyes
Yeah,
joint.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of, for a first appearance, I mean, it's not that exciting, unfortunately. I mean, she shoots, she just flies through, uh, what was it? Oh, that giant barrel of water, and it just sort of puts out the fire. Then she, just stops the tractor or something, whatever it is, or the big crane machine. And that's it. That's it. I mean, there's not
Yeah, it's
much to it. I
lackluster.
mean, it was all done within camera as well. It looks, the money's there, but it's just very by the numbers. It's not exciting.
Well, what kind of sucks too is that since they're trying to distance it from the others, and since they couldn't have Christopher Reeve in this, they're not having the townspeople do what anybody would, which is, why is she wearing a Superman costume?
Oh yeah. The weird
Someone
thing
really
is,
should be
like,
yelling that.
the thing where it's on the radio that Superman had disappeared, had gone off on a mission off
Oh,
into
that's
space for
right.
5 years. That's like,
That's
why?
right.
Is that what in Superman Returns where he goes to find Krypton? I don't know. That's a link there to Superman Returns.
I do think it's a little bit silly too that they have Selena kind of name her when she's like, it's a Supergirl. I mean, I guess you'd come up with that more readily because Superman is around, but like a Supergirl, that's almost like what you would have somebody say if like Superman didn't exist.
Oh yeah, possibly. But they had to throw it in anyway. You had to call her Supergirl.
Yeah, but that's a silly way to do it. I mean, like you could just have her later decide to start calling herself that because Superman is Superman.
In some of these shots here, I mean, because you can see the wires actually. There's a when she breaks off the um, part of the machine off, and she flies over and lands it over the fence. You can see the big big black wires. In the director's cut, you can't see them, so it's very odd that the prints are different.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Now he's gonna fall in love with her because of the love potion thing. That's so irritating.
It's so
You
funny
know, I
though
mean,
when he stands up and bangs his head. I always laugh at that moment.
yeah, I find this stuff kind of grueling to watch because it really comes off as we've got a girl. What do we do?
It's this sappy love story
Is it?
really.
Yeah, and is it that? Is it really? I'm just saying. Even in 1984, is it really that hard to write a female protagonist, a female like hero? Is it really that hard?
Well, it obviously clearly was for David Odell. I mean, we written the Muppets and Dark Crystal. I mean, there's no sign that he could have
Well, that's true. Yeah.
written
Well,
something like
he
this.
wasn't qualified. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not the right guy for this.
It's kind of weird because
But
even though Supergirl bombed, he did Masters of the Universe like 2 years, 2 or 3 years later. So he
oh
was still
yeah.
kind of getting work, and they sort of knew he could do something with it. But
I mean, I guess I'm saying this, from personal experience and stuff, and of course my perceptions would be different if I were him or if I, was my age at this time period. But I mean, like, writing something like this, the first thing I would do would be to try to avoid all stereotypes. Like I would probably avoid love interest unless I could make it put some kind of a spin on it where it was very clearly not the same thing you've seen 1,000 times. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because you don't want your audience saying, oh yeah, you have to have a love plot because it's a girl and girls like romances. You know what I mean? Like I would avoid all that stuff.
yeah, you avoid the cliches.
Yeah, yeah, just avoid the cliches, exactly.
Hmm.
And I'm also not saying that everything they're doing with her is too cliche. I don't mind that she's effeminate. I don't mind even the bunny thing or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, she's kind of like I said earlier. She's a little bit not vulnerable, but like what was the word I
Do
used?
you think actually she has more of a
Yeah.
sexual attraction to Zoltar in this
Oh,
thing? No, because
I
she
don't
she
know.
seems more fond of him than in terms of like because he's kind of like her teacher. Some a source of inspiration for her. But it's kind of that she has more affection for him than say Hart Buckner's character because it's kind of
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
she
yeah,
kind of
sure.
like yeah she always always attractive but there's not much else there.
That would have been an interesting thing to maybe do something with.
Yeah, but it would have been a bit
Because that's
creepy
at
though.
least
It
more
would
of
have
a
been a bit creepy though
character.
because he's like 40 years older than her, but
That's true, but again, it kind of plays on her innocence a little bit, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
she needs to be fascinated by by human beings in the first place. Like the thing this movie really should have done, even without Superman here, is really play up the difference between what he's like because he grew up as a human being and what she's like because she grew up as a Kryptonian.
Yeah. But
And
have you
and
got
I think the only reason we don't get enough of that is because we don't spend enough time with her at all. Like I think the villains take up half the film.
well, I did. That's what you'd said earlier. I mean, because now we just had one action sequence, and then, well, not barely a decent action sequence, but like 2 minutes later, we're gonna have another one, and it's the action is not spread out properly throughout the film because now you've got this sort of the demon or the shadow or whatever it's called. It's going after Supergirl, and you don't really see it, do you? You don't really see it in full form till she reflects the electricity well, the charge from the lightning bolt towards the demon. So you actually see it in its kind of its real form, but the form is kind of derived from the the object in which the Omega Hedron's being put inside. It starts forming that sort of demon, doesn't it? Near the end, it gets bigger and
Yeah.
bigger. But I mean, as a kid, I mean, when she calls forth the demon a minute ago, the sort of noise it makes, I thought it was quite scary. And then when it's sort of slowly coming towards the school, and you can see all the damage of all the trees, and it's eating its way through, stomping its way through, it looks really cool. And then when it appears in a minute, and you see it step down, and it breaks all the brick wall, and it stomps on the car, it looks fantastic. Sort of, you can't see it. It's all getting using some sort of compression or gas technique where there's the car uh, gets crushed by itself. It's also a bit cheesy as well. I don't know why, but was it she's trying to practice kissing as
Yeah,
well?
they really lose me at that point with her
Just trying to,
because
yeah,
yeah, because she's all head over heels now, and she's kind of lost herself, and because why? Because this hot guy she saved looked at her and acted like he was falling for her.
they're
Like,
playing it.
what
They're
does she
playing her
see in
too.
that guy? It doesn't
They're
work.
playing her too innocent and naive. I think in this, she should be a
Well,
little.
and kind of shallow,
Yeah,
like she doesn't see anything in that guy other than he's attractive. That doesn't work. I want to see more of. And this is the reason that I didn't entirely agree with you earlier, Oliver, when you were talking about like the gags with like the brawn stuff,
yeah.
because I found a lot of that stuff to just be kind of like excuses to make it look like we're dealing with her as an alien on Earth, but they're not really exploring that. They're just kind of they're just kind of drawing attention to it and then not really, doing anything interesting. They're not really exploring it.
Well, nothing really delivers on it. No, it's just
No.
done just for a quick gag. But yeah, it's
It's
down.
kind of it kind of comes off as obligatory. It's like
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. It's
it's,
it's very
they
much
just
throwaway scenes.
they do that because they think they've got to draw attention to that, and they can use it for comedy mileage. Like everything in this movie, it's like, okay, what can we do to make people laugh? What can we do to make people thrilled? But they're not telling a story.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that you know uh, you were saying earlier that the action scenes don't really follow. They don't really put them in the right places. It doesn't feel naturally paced, and that's because they're just they're there as a means to an end. They're just you gotta have action now.
No, yeah. It's like but it's like this whole scene. I love how it's executed. I think it's
Yeah,
it's on a
yeah,
technical side, but yeah,
sure.
it doesn't in a way
But what's
kind
the
of need to
point?
be there. It's
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is ultimately what is the point? Yeah,
yeah.
a movie is not a collection of a bunch of stuff that's supposed to be there. You know what I mean? Like you can't say, okay, movies should be funny and movies should be scary and it has to
But
all of those elements have to serve a
but
story.
also it doesn't kind of make sense either. I mean, she's charged
No.
this lamppost with electricity. Now she's going to propel it back at the demon. It's like, how does that work? I don't understand. Has he touched it and gone got like a shock off it?
I don't know. I don't think it
Yeah,
matters.
but it does give you I suppose it's to have like a quick glimpse to sort of see what this monster is.
Yeah, it's really cool
It looks
looking.
cool. It's kind of like it's also it falls into that, as I said earlier, that sort of category with Krull. We've got the big horrible monster living in this big castle, and yeah, it's kind of similar in essence to that. But I thought when
Once again, she's just got whatever power she needs at the time. It's like, how does she even know she can do
I
that?
know.
What is she doing? Yeah,
But this film,
that's a
this film
weird.
doesn't really have
That
no
was a weird
solid
line.
structure. I mean, you
Yeah,
usually have a
exactly.
start, middle, and end, but where we get from the beginning to the middle to the end, it's very convoluted. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's all over the
It
place. Yeah,
doesn't.
and that's ultimately what I was
Yeah,
getting
it
at.
doesn't link properly. I mean, it feels like you've got scenes that are kind of jumbled up in a way.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
all disconnected.
and
I mean,
that's probably down to why when Chris Reeve bowed out, they had to quickly shift things around, change settings,
right.
and they've got bits of dialogue. They thought, oh, this dialogue was really cool in the script. Let's put it here, and let's change it a little bit. And this is what's happened. It's just been put through a blender, and what you've
Yeah,
got is
just
this.
all a bunch of disconnected elements.
Yeah,
They know that a movie like this needs some levity to break up the drama. They know that they need to be trying to make their audience feel something, but they can't put it all together.
yeah.
So all of those things are just kind of it's kind of potpourri, really. They just kind of jumble it all together and hope it works out at the end. And that's not how you tell stories.
No.
You have to start from a character place. You have to let her drive her story. And I think that's part of the problem too. Is that I feel like she's kind of just along for the ride, Oliver. I feel like most of the movie she's just reacting to things.
What, Supergirl?
Yeah, she's not proactive enough. I mean, she's I guess she's proactive in that when a problem arises, she goes and tries to solve it, and she's I guess proactive in that she's decided she's going to go to this school for some reason. But that's about it. You know what I mean? Like Superman in his first and second movie, I felt like he was trying to figure stuff out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was investigating things. He was trying to stop Zod. He was trying to stop Lex Luthor. She's just kind of waiting for stuff to happen.
That's right.
And
Well,
then
like
it
now,
becomes an artifact
like
thing.
now, she's just sitting in a bedroom waiting for this Omega Hedron to be sort of cool to her. Very much like Christopher Reeve's like the Green Crystal. It's kind of like calling to her.
Yeah, and so that and that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm just saying that I want her to not react so much.
Mm.
Some of that at the start makes perfect sense. You have to do something to get the ball rolling, but then I'd like her to be like, okay, there's this plot, and I've got to go try to stop it. Like I feel like she's just waiting for things to happen.
Yes, yes. And now there's a she's obviously going to go to uh, the fairground ride where the amusement park, and then she's going to get obviously followed by Hart Buckner's character, and then she's going to encounter Selena, and it has another sort of very downplayed, very sort of clunky action sequence, and it's just another one. They've put three in a space of 15 minutes.
Yeah, and it ultimately starts to kind of come off like because we're not really exploring any ideas with her that we're just supposed to root for her because she has superpowers.
Yeah. Do you think this film could have been better directed if it had, let's say, for example, like John Hughes, who did Breakfast Club and Weird Science, because he knew what teenagers liked and he knew how to write them, and if he had, someone like him handling Supergirl, because they wanted to aim at a younger audience, teenagers, try and keep it contemporary at the time. He would have also done a far better job. I don't think John Swart didn't know his audience, didn't know what was popular at the time. Maybe it wasn't because some directors don't have a clue what teenagers like, and I think this is with its ideas and stuff. It was kind of already outdated.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I could see that. I could see doing it as more of a teenage film, but you'd want to do it as as a thoughtful one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, of
You
course.
wouldn't
Of
want to
course. There's
do it
got to be
as
a
like
meaning.
a
It's got a meaning, a message behind it all, and it's got to be.
well, but what I mean is you wouldn't want it to be like a really cliched high school film. You wouldn't want it to be like goofy teen angst. Although I don't think there was as much of that then as there is now. But and what I mean by goofy teen angst is I just mean like the kind of stuff where it's like really forced, you know what I
Oh, of
mean,
course, of
where
course.
it's not good angst, it's just teenagers are mean to each other because they haven't developed empathy yet, which is I think nonsense. But you get like I would say either get somebody in that knows how to do teen drama right, or don't make it that. You know what I mean? Like don't worry about aiming it at a teenage audience. Just make a movie in the same vein as Superman, address the fact that your character is a little bit younger,
Yeah.
and move on. I honestly think that they that a misstep here was having her go to that kind of a school. She should have been going to a regular public school.
Yeah, that would have been a lot more interesting, wouldn't it? I think because it would have shown. I don't know.
Why does she want to go to an all-female school? Is it just because that's the first one she'd stumbled upon?
I presume so. I mean, that's what.
That's the sense I get. Yeah, and I mean, like, I think you're immediately alienating people when you do that. Who in your audience is gonna go, yeah, all female school? You know what I mean? Like you're immediately making it harder to develop real interesting drama when you do that. Why not have her go to a regular public school where she has to deal with where she has to deal with guys and she has to deal with everything that you deal
Yeah.
with in high school, and like I said, you would still run the risk of doing it in a stereotyped way,
You would do, but
but
I think
I
But
guess
the
what I'm
end
saying is
result, I think the end result will be a lot more successful. I think.
well, you want her to deal with stuff that real people are used to dealing with,
Mm.
and that's generally not the all girls school where everybody's wearing uniforms. Like most people wouldn't be able to relate with that. Most people haven't done that.
Yeah. I be honest, as we said, well, maybe I pointed out earlier, but the film's trying to aim at a certain audience, but I don't think it knows what it wants to be. I
It
think
doesn't know what it wants to be. Yeah,
because you've got the magic elements, you've got the moments of sort of horror and sort of scary stuff with Phantom Zone and the demon thing at the end. You've got the sort of cliched romance, and you've got this sort of the science fiction element with the beginning bit with inner space and trying to be like Superman the movie, and then you've got this sort of TV-esque dialogue scenes with Selena and the character Peter Cook plays. So it's all over the place. And it is Superman 3. It knew what it was trying to be because Richard Lester understands comedy, but he can do action if pushed. But he can balance that to a certain degree. But this feels very much inconsistent. It would have been interesting if Charlotte Swark had directed Superman 3. I think may have been a bit, may have had a different style to it. It probably made the film a little bit more fresh. But I don't think this material was his forte.
I mean, we are an hour 20 in, and she's finally not just facing the villain, but finding out who she is in the first place.
Yeah.
I really think that I just stumbled upon this idea. Tell me if you think I'm right about it. I think part of the problem with this is, and what I've been kind of dancing around, is that I think a lot more, having seen this, like to see Supergirl, Kara having to go through the human experience. And I feel like what's weird about this is that they keep putting her in equally alien places.
Mm.
Like she comes to Earth, and for a while she flies around and gets to kind of see what Earth is like, but then she goes to this place, and it's a carnival, and it's weird, and it's not normal, and like she's not getting to really experience what it's like to be human,
No.
because they're just putting her in all these really bizarre places. Now they could do that and be making some kind of a point with it, and it could be interesting, but they're not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could say the
You
film
know,
has, you could take little ideas from the film and think, oh, it kind of works here.
it could have gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then
exactly.
it quickly fumbles straight
I
away.
don't know what the point is with the kind of pseudo creepy stuff, except for, like you said, that kind of jambalaya of we've got to put in something for everybody. And the something for everybody thing doesn't work if it's not cohesive.
Yeah, it's not
Because
cohesive. That's the thing, and
because
the whole
that
plot's not cohesive.
yeah, because a person that likes this kind of weird, like you said, pseudo Dark Crystal stuff,
Yeah,
it's not like Dark Crystal, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
That tone of that kind of uncomfortable weirdness. Well, they're not getting it through the whole movie. They've got bits of it.
yeah,
And so, like, what are you doing when you say there's got to be something for everybody like that, and you're not telling a cohesive story? You're saying that they're going to enjoy it for the few minutes that's on screen. That
yeah,
doesn't make
yeah.
any sense. They have to sit through the whole 2 hours.
Exactly.
And so, if they had done this thing where, like, again, she comes to Earth and she thinks she understands it, and then suddenly it becomes weirder and weirder, and she thinks it, and she starts to see the skewed view just because of her weird experiences of Earth is like this terrible horror fest, like she's living in like Pee-wee's Playhouse for days, and you know what I mean, something like that. Like that could have been really interesting, but that's not what they did.
No, it's
So, like you said, all I can do is point to, well, here's an idea you started with, and I don't even know if it's a fully realized idea, but it's a thing I saw on screen, and I can see you going with this. Did you really ever think you'd see this? This is weird.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of strange. I'm trying to think back to my reactions.
Supergirl's flying football
Oh
guys.
yeah,
That's just weird.
when I was a kid, trying to think back what your first sort of interpretation of the film, your first reaction, sorry, to the film. It's always just a weird one. I always just like bits of it, and the rest of it I just didn't really care much about.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it.
This film left no impression on me whatsoever
No,
when
no.
I was
I
a
mean,
kid.
I always said to my friends, okay, it's got a great soundtrack. Helen Slater's cool. She's attractive. She's they've got this sort of some nice elements of action, but it doesn't really work particularly well. I mean, I quite like the ending, but it yeah, it never did much for me because I've got three.
Well, the most impressive thing is that she keeps a straight face through the whole movie.
I know, yeah.
Because a lot of this seems really hokey, and she's selling it, like I said earlier.
Oh yeah, it's a big budget film, her first big acting gig. You got to take it. She's taking it seriously, and she had a theatrical background, so she's going to take it professionally.
Yeah, like I said, I really want to reiterate that. I think she does a great job with with the material she's given. I don't think anybody could have been as convincing as she was, or more convincing than she was.
When Ethan gets hit on the head with a coconut, I think that
Oh
would probably
God,
kill him. I think his head would have gone cracked over.
I
Yeah.
yeah, there's a part of me that wishes this film was that realistic, but um, just because I don't like that subplot, it's really stupid. Oliver, I wanted to mention to you, I told you this film left no impression on me. I did have a memory of it though, and it's one of those really weird like false memories. Do you ever have this where like
Oh,
I don't know why, but I've talked about this recently with
yeah. Was it something like
a couple
people
people on the
thought
channel.
there was a scene in like Wizard of Oz? People thought they remember seeing it at the cinema, but it was never actually in the film.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I had one of those with this. Um, I always remembered Christopher Reeve being in one scene,
Huh?
and I had a vivid memory of him having some kind of a speech to Supergirl, like lecturing her about how to fit in. And
That is
it's not
weird.
the movie. Yeah, and I like I thought that was there up until like a few years ago.
It's kind of like it may have been
I must have
something
filled it in
bizarre
just because
where
I
because in
really
Superman
wanted
4,
it.
no, in Superman 4, he goes to the school to see Jeremy, and there's like a bit of the school where he talks to him. Was he deleted? But it may
Yeah,
be something in your memory where you saw a photo of Chris in that school and went, oh, it's from this bit from Supergirl.
maybe
Obviously,
so. I don't know,
obviously
but
not.
yeah, my memory filled it in, and I very vividly remembered them all in costume together.
Because I remember as a kid, I rented Superman 3, the rental tape. At the beginning, there was a teaser for Supergirl, and it was a daylight scene in the city, and it had coming soon Supergirl, right? But all the
Right.
trailers for Supergirl, there's a teaser, but it's all set at night. And it goes over the city, and it has a Superman S, and it goes Supergirl the movie coming soon. But I remember it being in daytime, and I thought, man, there must be a different trailer, which is not online and not on the DVD, but it may be I've got confused.
Wow.
It's one
So
of
you
those.
too have a bizarre filled-in memory
Yeah,
about this very
I do.
film. Yeah, interesting. I think that might be kind of indicative of what this project turned into. That we're constantly watching this movie, remembering it the way we wanted it to be because it was
Yeah.
just too traumatic of an experience.
So
No, I'm
I remember it being okay, and then you sort of watch it. Oh no, it's not.
I remember just being baffled by it. Like I said, it didn't really leave an impression on me. But I remember when I first saw it when I was a kid on TV or something. I remember going, "This is weird." Like that's what I remember
It's a
about it.
film
Just
that
this is, and it is like it's no less weird now than it was back then.
yeah, it's one of those films I can never say it's awful or I hate it, whatever. I mean, it is part of your childhood and it's part of nostalgia where I sort of kind of have a fondness for it because when you sort of look at films and how they're made, it's you can't just say oh it's horrible and cheap and nasty. I mean, there is a lot of effort put into it. You have to sort of show appreciation to the filmmakers involved, but it's as a storytelling device, it falls flat on its face, and I can only get enjoyment out of it by seeing little bits of it and going, oh, I like this bit, I like that bit, but
Yeah,
to sort of sit, through the entire film and sort of with a straight face or try and argue with someone who says it's awful. You
taking it
can't
seriously.
defend
You
it.
can't.
You can't defend it
No,
that much, and but yeah, it does have a little bit of charm to it, and if you can enjoy it for its those
it
little
doesn't get it.
moments, and
Yeah, it doesn't get everything wrong.
Yeah,
And well, and that's why things like this are so disappointing. Is the stuff that it gets right.
I know.
You know, when you see potential, it's a lot harder than when there's a movie that just doesn't work even on the conceptual level. You know, like it's weird sometimes when people get so bent out of shape about a movie that didn't work even at the conceptual level, where you're like, well, nobody should have even made that movie. It's not even a good idea. This should have been made,
Yeah.
you know, and they had some of the right people to make it, you know, and they had some of the right actors to make it. And like I said, I think they certainly
I
handled
don't think the
Supergirl.
Soulkinds, you know, I think they're probably too hasty of trying to, you know,
Capitalize.
yeah, and not really thinking hard about the script because, you know,
Yeah, it wasn't about telling a story, very clearly.
yeah, it's like because they had, you know, Superman 3 had major problems with its script, and they just gave it to the Newmans, they did it. No, yeah, it's fine, we can trust them, and we'll just give you the money, go make it. And it's the same with
Yeah.
Supergirl and Santa Claus, you know. And then they did Christopher Columbus the movie, which was awful, you know. And
Oh wow,
it's
I've never seen that.
they're not getting the right people to write the scripts or thinking more carefully. Like, is this worth the investment? You know, they're spending loads of money, you know.
Yeah, it's sort of like a rock band that is all worried about their look and their makeup and their and all of that stuff and what kind of guitars they have, and they never spend any time actually practicing
Yeah, yeah, because
the music. It's like that, and so it's like you see this package that looks okay on the surface, but then there's not enough talent underneath it.
mm.
And I'm talking about that again from a story perspective because I do think that there's some talent in some of
Oh,
these
there's
actors.
got, you know, it's got some of the best technicians in, you know, in the UK involved on this film. So
Yeah.
there's clearly, you've got the people who worked obviously in other Superman films, you've got people who worked on the James Bond films. So, you know, you've got, you know, yeah, you say a creative talent there, but it's the meat of it, the film, to make it work is the story. The story is the foundation, and that doesn't work. The whole film's gonna fall apart. It's like you can't make a good film out of a bad script.
I always think it's kind of a bad idea, and we saw this a lot in Star Trek original series and stuff. I always think it's a bad idea when you have a character disappear on screen to not do some kind of a transition
I know it's
effect.
just a quick cut. It's like
Yeah,
TV. It's like TV
that
again.
always looks strange. It's never believable.
No, not at all.
You know, it always worked a lot better in say like I know I'm referencing Star Trek a lot. In say like with Q and TNG, where there's always a white light that flashes across the
Yeah,
entire screen, because you can get away with anything when you do that.
well,
Like
yeah,
it always looks okay.
they've done
And
they've
it's
done
a little bit of a cheat, but it looks good.
well, yeah. I mean, they've done the heat vision. They've even spent time doing the sort of, you know, super hearing effect. Why couldn't they have done an effect for
Just
him
do
to
some kind
disappear?
of beam effect. Yeah, just some kind of light, a white light, a blue light, anything.
Yeah, but coming up shortly is
Sparkles, something.
come up shortly when Supergirl travels through the city to Selina's new headquarters. It's one of my favorite effect sequences in the film because the speed at which he travels. I mean, it's not like a, you know, like a you know, like in Superman Returns, he whizzes past camera, you can barely see him. But she's, you know, this is what I would have wanted to see in Man of Steel, where he's in camera, he's in focus, but he's flying at top speed, you know. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
a good call.
just a blurred effect or just CGI, you know, character. But supposedly the whole mountain of, you know, Selena's uh, castle was actually just painted on glass by Derek Meddens and put in like it's like a forced perspective shot put in front of
It's
camera.
kind of it's kind of cool looking
It is
actually.
cool, yeah.
I wanted to mention something from a scene, a couple scenes ago, because we were talking about something else and I didn't get around to it. She says to doughy-eyed boyfriend guy with no brain in his head that she's not wearing a costume; these are just her clothes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just so weird, right? Like, because first of all, you weren't wearing anything like that when you were at your homeworld, and then you come here and you're supposed to wear that. Is it like an ambassador sort of thing? Is like that's what you wear when you go to another planet? And then she says it's not a costume, but she uses it as a costume
I know.
because she jumps between it and her Linda Lee outfit. So like she only wears it when she thinks she's going to have to do superhero work. I don't understand.
Yeah,
Why does she have a secret identity, Oliver? Like I really don't understand her secret
well,
identity
it's
in
only
all of
thrown in
this.
just to show the sort of the comparison piece with Superman. You know, she's that's the only reason why because I
Yeah.
mean, in the comics, she's
It's almost like it's a given. Like, oh well, of course she has a secret identity. She knows everything about Superman, and but she doesn't. How would even if she knows that he's
yeah, she doesn't
there?
know. Yeah, she wouldn't know. She
How
has
would
an
she
identity.
know who he is? She can't know he's Clark Kent, right?
Oh, exactly. But in the comics, did she have one? Did she have an identity? I mean, later on,
Yeah, she did, and like I said, it was Linda Danvers,
right?
and but like it wasn't like she just showed up on Earth and automatically came up with that.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, because of with the Phantom Zone, when she walks into the sort of the uh, the trap, um, does it? Because we were discussing earlier, how would Selena know about the Phantom Zone? Do you think maybe because the Omega Hedron has given her that ability because it's from that world?
that was the only thing I could come up with.
Yeah, it's it's just thrown in because fans know about the Phantom Zone, but there's no real explanation how she knows of it. And I do like, it's coming up shortly. I do like how the Phantom Zone looks, that world, but was it supposed to be a world? I thought they're just trapped forever in this like uh this sort
It
of
is pretty cool they do it with the glass. I mean, I got to give them that.
yeah.
I'm glad they went there just for the sake of consistency and because I never get tired of that effect. Like, it looks really cool.
Does it?
But no, you're absolutely right. Here's the deal: there are a lot of different versions of the Phantom Zone, and usually, maybe I shouldn't say usually. I guess my favorite version and the one that makes the most sense is where the Phantom Zone is another reality where you're like separated from your body and you're basically just in limbo and you can't nothing can affect you but you can't affect anything
Yeah, yeah.
and
I've
it's not
seen
really
that
a
one before.
world. But then this kind of thing has been done quite a bit also. There are some comics, and I think I've read some stuff from like the mid '80s where there was like a Phantom Zone miniseries where it was sort of done this way,
Okay.
where it was like a wasteland, and like yeah, you go into the Phantom Zone, and it's this like terrifying desert kind of. It's usually frozen though.
Okay.
It's not frozen here, but
Yeah, this
it's
is
it's like it's a
more. It's kind of implying to be more like hell, isn't it?
yeah,
It's.
and usually it's more like a frozen hell. They did it in Smallville as a frozen hell.
I thought, yeah,
Um,
because I thought it was more like a sort of dusty wasteland in Smallville, wasn't it?
I thought it was frozen, but maybe you're right. It's been a while since
Yeah.
I've seen their,
The
their version.
But it would have been interesting because when she encounters Peter O'Toole, he says, there's more people here, but you don't see them.
You
And
don't see them.
it would have been
Yeah,
good to see more
missed
people, or
opportunity.
like in the background, you have a giant monster that's walking, that's stomping around. Just to create there's more people there or more monsters from other
Well, and you could have
dimensions.
put more creatures in there
Yeah,
because the idea of the Phantom Zone is that's where Krypton sent its criminals. But if they had to go up against any intergalactic creatures that they couldn't subdue themselves, they might send them here.
yeah.
So that makes perfect sense. This all looks kind of cool. I mean, the background certainly is painted, but I like it.
It has scope to it. I mean, it's the money's been spent. It's good. I mean, it would have had when she's walking across. I mean, all that rubble. It should have had loads of skulls there. Like in Man of Steel, where he's like,
Oh
that
yeah,
would be
that would have been
wicked. All
cool.
these dead bodies. It would have been just to add a bit more to it.
But I guess the problem is that as cool as this is, this film has not earned this kind of
No,
stuff.
no, it feels really out of place now, doesn't
It's
it?
really out of place. We get to here and we're like, well, how did we have those scenes with like again you wake up and you see the bunny and the like broth, all that kind of stuff. Like, how is this in the same movie? And again, things like that could be well integrated, but I haven't lived with this character the way I need to in order to appreciate her in a place like this, especially because she's basically just fighting for this guy that she's in love with for very, very superficial reasons.
Yeah, yeah. And
So I guess I'm
it
just saying that
feels like
at
you're
this point I
watching a
don't care.
film that has been heavily edited. That you're missing big chunks, and it's not as bad as like Superman 4, but you still kind of feel you're missing something, and you're not missing much at all. I mean, there is
No.
scenes deleted, but they don't help the story. They just have a
Well,
few
and a
extra
lot of the
scenes of
story
dialogue.
stuff, and a lot of story stuff also feels like an afterthought.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You can't tell me that from the very beginning they went, you know what would be a great idea? Let's have this random kid like get a love potion and fall in love with Supergirl. No,
Yeah.
right? Like they could not have started with that.
I think originally it was kind of like I think when Superman was attached, I think Superman got ill, but I think either Supergirl got sent to Phantom Zone, but she found the cure there and brought it back with her. Um,
And that could have
Possibly.
been really neat, you know. You
Yeah,
have Supergirl has to save Superman, and at this time, that would have been a pretty cool statement, you know. Like Superman
yeah,
can be vulnerable. He needs a girl to save
definitely,
him.
definitely.
Yeah, man. Like
It's showing
that.
respect for the the female audience. I think that would have been a fantastic idea, actually.
You know, she'd be a stronger female character,
Yeah,
and it would have like Superman himself as the MacGuffin would have felt less like a MacGuffin.
yeah, yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying. Where you have to have because you know you've seen that kind of plot a million times where like somebody's sick and you got to go find the special thing to save them
Sure,
or
sure,
whatever.
sure. But
Um, but
it's seeing
that as a
Superman, himself be really
yeah
weakened.
yeah that as the skeleton and then you beef it up you meet it up and then it doesn't feel like a cookie cutter excuse for a movie
Yeah,
like everything in this movie does.
definitely. It's also kind of weird when she meets Zoltar now and he
I'm like,
wants
is he covered in kryptonite? What's
yeah
going on?
he wants her to drink that stuff and he goes squirt and he's like
Squirt.
it's like what is it? It's like what's some awful drink he's made. That stuff behind him was like the bubbly sort of I don't know. Doesn't look nice.
That's creepy.
But he's only been there for like 2 days, hasn't he? How long's he been there for? Because how long's she been
Could
on?
have been very long, but see, I think time displacement is really troubling in this movie,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah. Because he
Like
can't have
it's
gone.
really
He
it's
can't have
really
gone
confusing
that quickly.
because well, but also like how much time passed between her being sent off to Earth and her arriving at Earth?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Because I thought in Superman there was supposed to be some kind of a time
There
displacement.
is, yeah.
Well,
Because
there's not
he
in
doesn't he say
this
to
at
many
all.
he says I've been dead for many thousands of your years in
Yeah, you
Superman.
don't you don't have that in this at all.
That's a good point.
I mean, I'm not complaining that she doesn't age because
But there's no
because
explanation. There's no one said.
Superman didn't age either. Yeah, there'd be a time displacement between the planet and Earth, not inside the pod. But that what we see there kind of implies that the same amount of time has passed on Argo as passed here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's definitely an issue with its time. Um, it's got but
So
they even make fun of themselves by
that's
she's
another cliche there with the kidnapping plot.
yeah,
I'm
and
sorry,
you've
what?
got them dangling in those chains.
Uh,
It's kind of like, but they even make fun of it because Peter Cook goes, "Oh, the dangling chain routine, whatever."
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad somebody in the movie realizes that is that's as throwaway and token as I do
yeah.
because oh man, and I can't see that without thinking of Ninja Turtles 3.
I get so many requests to review that film. People just want to make me suffer.
Oh, I know.
But I love the production design of this, Zoltar's house. Um, I
So did they throw his whole house into the Phantom Zone?
yeah, yeah. Well, he's kind. It's like the only one there. I mean, it's they would have had more people living there, maybe. I don't know. Or they all get one house each. I don't know to live in. It
Yeah,
seems
see, I'm surprised there are structures at all.
yeah, yeah. No, they wouldn't give you any sort of luxury, would they?
Right.
And he's made a horse.
You have
He's made a horse
place.
as well. And how would you know what a horse looks like when he struggled to make what a tree looked like earlier on? Um, it's all a bit peculiar. How does he have the knowledge to know what a horse looks like?
Well, and again, it's kind of at the front of it. At the conceptual level, it's kind of an interesting idea to have him be really intrigued by Earth culture, and but again, not a lot is done with it. Like, wouldn't it make sense for him to teach her a bunch of stuff about Earth so that when she gets there, she knows more about it?
Oh yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
think
it
they
would be good if
really go there.
he actually went there at one point.
I don't think they really do anything with that. But they could have. I mean, I guess maybe that's somewhat of what's gone on. I mean, maybe she gets there and she is able to fit in a little bit better because she's hung out with this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um,
Well, yeah.
she
That
didn't know
does imply a
what a
little bit at the beginning.
train was before she left, so I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it does imply a little bit at the beginning that he's teaching her about Earth culture, but it's very minimal though.
Yeah.
But so this scene here is some of Helen Slater's best acting, when she's uh, trying to persuade him to sort of try and escape from the Phantom Zone. It is a little bit theatrical, her performances. It's something you may see on stage. I think Helen Slater had been criticised a little bit for her performance being a little bit too theatrical. But Christopher Reeve also faced that same criticism for some of his other films, not Superman, for being too much like an actor when he's on screen.
Yeah, it seems too much like a stage performance.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I would argue that it's fine. I would take up for it because the Kryptonians are that way.
Yeah.
Like
They've got
like
that
like
stoic and sort of,
you
when they speak, it's very sort of Shakespearean, where.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at the Kryptonians in the first movie, they're all like that.
Yeah.
And that's the way Jor-El was portrayed. And so again, like since they're it's Argo City, it's not Krypton, but they're still Kryptonians. A she is an adult woman that has. I mean, she's kind of a teenager, but she's basically an adult. That didn't grow up on Earth. She grew up on
That's
Krypton.
right.
I like that she talks differently. So, like, I wonder if maybe they didn't go after somebody that might give that kind of performance because they
That's true.
wanted
That's
her
true.
to seem Kryptonian. In fact, I would have gone farther than that, and I would have had somebody with a British accent.
Yeah, it would have been that. Would have been. Well, she does try to speak in that way, doesn't she? She's tried to
A
speak.
little
Yeah.
bit, but
She's
but
tried
she
to
still.
tone down her accent a little bit.
Yeah. But like, I would have just gone full tilt,
Yeah, would have been interesting.
English accent, I think, because every Kryptonian, because that's the old Oliver, that's the old sci-fi cliche, right? Like everybody in space is British.
We'll be the first there.
Like Star Wars, they're all British.
I love
Sorry, what?
the director of photography always adds the Morticia eyes over Faye Dunaway. All the close-ups is like that little bit of light on her eyes. Always makes me laugh. It's a little weird though, because there's only one way at the Phantom Zone, which is the quantum vortex, and no one else is trying it. It's just them two. You think it'd be other people going quickly, trying to climb up the walls and like
Go to
falling
the
off.
quantum vortex. Yeah.
People placing bets. Come on, he made it. Come on, you got to do next. But
And then you find out that there are all these people that have tried it over and over again, and then you find out that the way to do it is to find the courage within yourself by doing it without the rope.
I think they've visualized it for 1984. They've visualized it very well, but these sort of like giant tornadoes whipping around quite close to them. But as a kid, I always thought, does it look that difficult to climb up it? Because they're climbing up, going upwards, but the shots they do looks like they're both of them as lying down. So how it's been shot, it doesn't show how difficult it should actually be.
A couple angles here and there, like that one.
Yeah, I was like,
That looks hard.
it's all right lying down, but then it cuts to them climbing upwards. It's like, oh, that's really difficult.
I also have to kind of give them props a little bit. Um, again, the piece isn't cohesive, but just in this scene of having a Kryptonian, having this superpowered character who has lost her powers and has to get through things without them, has to struggle against that, not being used to that,
Yeah.
and it not being done in a like really cheap way, I've always argued that Superman losing his powers in Superman 2 is a little convoluted. Here she just goes to a place where she wouldn't have powers. I kind of like that.
Yeah. And she's just to use her own, brute strength to get out of there. I mean, also she's put through, emotional stress as well, because she's in an environment she never doesn't know, and she loses her, closest friend. And as a kid, I always did get a bit upset as a kid when Zoltar died. I was like, no, but
Well, and I feel like they're trying really hard to not make this like a dumbed down kiddish thing, and that's part of what's weird about it is you said it was trying to they were trying to appeal to teenage audiences and stuff, but then at the same time I don't think they're trying really hard not to make it a kiddie film.
well, yeah,
And
that goes with its
she's
inconsistent
got some
tone.
blood on her face and stuff like yeah,
Yeah,
and so it's calling back to Superman 2 a little bit where these movies could get a little bit if not dark and edgy, at least gritty
yeah.
in places.
I mean, this is the scenes where it does kind of work. I mean, I think
Yeah,
I always enjoyed these
and
moments.
that's what disappoints me so much about it is I see this scene and I could totally see this scene exactly the way it is in a better movie.
Definitely.
Drives me insane.
And it also helps with Peter O'Toole, providing a good performance, and he probably
Exactly.
doesn't care. He's probably drunk half the time on set, I'd imagine, but he's getting into it.
I mean, why do we have to have this in the same movie with these really silly, obnoxious villains making dumb potions and having zebra print all
Well,
over
yeah,
their
just tacky magicians, but it's I
yeah
don't
tacky magicians?
they
The musical.
they just this clearly couldn't think of a solid villain for Supergirl. I mean, there must have been
Yeah.
something in the comics, but there's probably too far fetched. Or the audience probably wouldn't have believed what they were seeing.
Well,
Or
the risk, yeah. Here's the deal. The risk is we already did Kryptonian villains in Superman 2,
yeah,
and but the thing is, given that she's not from Earth and she has a past on another planet before she goes to Earth. The kind of natural thing to do would have been to have given her an arch nemesis that came after her
yeah, that would be cool.
and wasn't something that came from Earth. That she accidentally brings something with her. By the way, I want to mention this. I'm a big fan of the new 52 Supergirl, and there's a lot of 52 I don't like, but I really like their Supergirl. And what they did with her is they had her like kind of like this where she shows up on Earth being having grown up already, but the difference is she's not on another planet from like after Krypton explodes. She was, and this version has been in the comics before where like she actually grew up on Krypton,
Okay.
but she shows up uh like it explodes and she shows up like Clark did, except she's fully blown or she's fully grown. This version like is so angry that Krypton has exploded and doesn't know what to do with Earth that she's just always mad and hits everything, and
Oh,
it's
that
really
sounds
interesting.
really good.
Yeah, and she has to kind of develop a love for Earth. She doesn't have it right away.
Hmm.
She doesn't want to be there. She's an alien, and she knows it. And she doesn't like it. She wants her world
Isn't that
back.
kind of similar in a way to like when Superman died? You had the four Supermen. You had the Eradicator, who was basically
Yeah,
Superman, who would have been Superman if he'd grown up on Krypton.
exactly.
That's a good take they've gone with actually. I'll have to read
Yeah,
that.
so I really like that. In fact, right now, she's become a Red Lantern.
Oh,
She
okay.
has so much rage that the Red Lanterns, one of the rings they sent out, went to her. She's a Red Lantern now.
Some stroppy woman.
It's pretty awesome.
Oh dear. But this scene, I always quite like this scene. I think generally downtail. I think the music as well. The music's really good for this scene. But also, it's also a bit silly because now in a few seconds she makes the whole floor, you know, come apart. All the tiles sort of, start shaking. But she could easily just fly over that, fly over it all, and then she just sort of falls over and seems to fall for her trap. So it's a little bit like, they could have done a lot better with um, how it was executed. But it's
Yeah, but the tiles look
it all
cool.
looks great, but it's kind of Supergirl could have easily get out of that. She could just hover.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I think I might have even mentioned that when I reviewed it.
Uh, and the idea of a giant castle on a mountain is a really cool idea, and you don't really see much else of the castle. It's just the you know the main hall. main hall room, and then it would have had nice. It would have been better to have more shots of Selena looking out of the castle onto the people and having more scenes of dialogue, maybe. But just to explore it a bit more.
Why not just have a villain that operates out of a castle?
Well,
If
yeah.
you're gonna do a big castle in the mountains, why the silly carnival thing where they're trying to pay their rent? Why not just have a villain that's already operating out of this? I think Bowser would have made a better villain for Supergirl. I think this should have been a Bowser castle,
Yeah.
and we see her heat vision up some Goombas.
Now this bit coming up when she makes the demon appear, that was a kid. I was freaked out. I was like, because
Oh yeah, it looks really
it looks
scary.
awesome, you know. He pulls her into her hands and starts to crush her. But obviously
It's very Zool, right?
yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of Ghostbusters-y.
Well, it just does look, it does, you know, it looks fantastic. The
It's cool.
when it
But again, this movie has not earned this. This is not the same. We're not watching the same movie we were watching 45 minutes ago. And that wasn't the same movie it was 45 minutes before that, I don't think.
no. See, this is, you know, these are the, you know, the decent moments in the film, and but they, no, as you said, they didn't earn it. They didn't earn these
You know
moments.
what it feels like? It feels like Power Rangers and Sentai footage. It's almost as if somebody just tried to make a script around something pre-existing and could not figure out how to make it work. So they just took a bunch of stuff that was already there and they like flimsily wrote a plot around it. That's what it feels like.
But I think the weakest effect, isn't it? Is coming up when she attempts
Being
to,
stretched.
yeah, being stretched. They couldn't do it at the time. They do say optically couldn't do it. I mean, there's you know, it's daring. It's trying to be creative with it, but
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. I mean, there's one shot too where it kind of get away with it, but it doesn't work. But I do like though when, because Zoltar's died, but he's obviously their living spirit, but he tells her to, you know, you can do it. You can, you know, break out of it, and I think that's quite a powerful moment. I quite like that scene. You can, on girl.
It would have been nice if he was mentoring her through more of the movie. But
Oh
by the time he
yeah,
shows up again, we've forgotten all about
it's
him.
a bit of an Obi-Wan Kenobi moment.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, is Zoltar even a Kryptonian name?
I don't
Did
know.
they start changing the way they named people? Well, but he had to have been old enough to have been on Krypton.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I don't know, because it's not Zol like a hyphen tar.
No,
That's not
it's
how
not.
I've
No,
ever
it's
seen it
not. It's not
spelled.
a
It's just
house of
Zoltar.
something, is
What
it?
is he? What is he? Zoltar something else? Like there's a hyphen. Zoltar
I'm
Bob.
sure
Zoltar
he's a made up character, isn't he, for the film? I don't.
Mob.
He's not in the comics, is he?
I don't think so. I'm gonna look him up and see if there's any precedents, but I don't think so.
I'm sure someone out there probably go, no, it was in issue 54 of so and so. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, I know. So yeah, there's always somebody that knows a lot more than me about this stuff because I don't spend all my time reading everything that ever existed, so I just don't know everything.
I don't. Yeah, the way she defeats
I do my best.
the way,
I try to know what I can.
the way she defeats, you know, Selena is a very. I don't like it. Where she just creates these tornadoes and then whips them all into one, and they go through the mirror, and suddenly it all repairs. I just don't get it.
Well, it's the same problem we've had since the theatrical Superman 2. There's not a consistent set of rules for the powers.
Yeah, it looks cool though. It's all about looking. It looks great, but there's no explanation behind it all.
Well, and it's just not dynamic enough.
No.
You know, you shouldn't have your superhero solve every problem standing on flat feet.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what we've seen a lot with this. Like the same thing with the like sending the electricity back. You know what I mean?
And do
Like
they?
she
And
just
does
stands there and the effects work for her. But what's interesting is I think that's kind of the whole movie has that problem. The
yeah,
effects are driving everything.
yeah.
All the way down to the actress doesn't even get to look like she's doing anything.
But yet also now, does it imply that they kind of know it's, you know, Linda?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, oh, you won't tell anyone, you know. And it's like, what? Okay, won't tell anyone you're here. Does not make sense. A Wookiee on
No, it
Endor
doesn't.
does not make sense.
You sound like a pouting little 6-year-old.
Well,
It doesn't. Make sense.
But
Yeah, how does this end with this big giant epic castle thing? Like, how is this that? How does that happen in this
then it all
movie? It's
disappears,
so
like
baffling.
in the cheap technique you brought up earlier. It just goes whip and disappears.
Yeah, that's so dumb. Like just it's glitter or something.
It should have all crumbled or something,
Yeah, that would have been cool.
like in Dark Crystal, it goes breaks and stuff, and would have been a cool miniature to blow up at the end.
Yeah, or you could have done it like Neverending Story, where it's like on a rock and it's floating out in space.
Yeah, but now she goes back to inner space by going. Oh yeah, goes back through the water
Oh,
again,
through
doesn't
the
it? Yeah,
water. Yeah, that's weird.
it's like another dimension underwater. 'Cause-
See, again, if she was gonna go back home the whole time, if this was just she had to go get this, it was a mission.
yeah,
Because that's the thing is that she's just here to get something done and leave. She doesn't really need an alternate uh, persona, really.
well, no, no, not at all.
Why not just go around and be like, "Hi, I'm Superman's cousin. I'm gonna prove it by shooting something with my heat vision. Could you help me find this plot device that I'm searching for?" Right? Why
I'm
would
looking for a spinning ball. Have you seen it?
why would that have even occurred to her? And again, when Ethan asks her, what's with the costume, she says these are my clothes. Like he should have known already. Like this character would not have thought of secret identity. I don't think
No, no, she shouldn't know
she
that
would.
Superman has one.
Part of
So.
the alien thing should have been walking around in that, being surprised that anybody's surprised by it. You know? No, no, really. Like she's just she's conspicuous and she doesn't understand it.
Well, that goes in, head and tail with the idea that she's a Kryptonian, doesn't act at all human, and everything to her is all alien. Where Superman grew up on Earth, and everything to him is quite natural. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's that's the problem. It does not,
Now,
understand what it wants to
obviously,
do.
if Christopher Reeve had been in this movie, I'm sure it would have been his idea for her to have a secret identity.
Yeah, yeah,
I would imagine, and so they had to kind of shoehorn that in there. It also makes me wonder if there weren't just parts of the script that they decided for whatever reason they couldn't rewrite or rewrite much of, and so it's like, well, we already had all this stuff planned out for this, like all girls school and stuff. We're not going to change it now. You know what I mean? Like maybe we already had all that lined up, and
oh
so
yeah,
we still have to
yeah.
go through with it.
It just is clearly apparent for the entire film. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They pinched ideas from other stuff, cobbled together scenes from like, earlier drafts, and tried
And
to make something of it. And they've
Lucy and Jimmy are completely wasted
yeah,
characters.
yeah. They shouldn't even Jimmy shouldn't even be there.
Well, again, I'm going to argue that Lucy shouldn't be there.
But
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
coming up
As you
with
said,
some
it's kind of
kind
like
of a
it's more
reason.
implied that he'd have more to do because he's already an
Well,
established character.
and also when I was reminded last time I saw this that oh yeah he's in this because I always forget about that. I'm like oh yeah he's in this. I was thinking well maybe like since they never gave him much to do in the Superman movies maybe he'll get something to do here, but he doesn't.
No, doesn't at
In
all.
fact, he has more screen time in Superman 3 I think than he has in this
Um, yeah, I think so.
by a little
Maybe,
bit.
maybe equal. I think maybe equal amount
Yeah.
of time. But it's actually, they're also using the same end credit style of effect they did in Superman 3, I think.
Oh, is it?
I think
I
it's
couldn't
similar to the end
I
of
couldn't
Superman 3. I
remember.
think, or maybe, trying to rack my mind.
Yeah, with
Maybe I think maybe this was
the
exclusive to
credits kind of
Supergirl.
upright.
Yeah,
It's kind of an interesting
but
aesthetic.
it's good. It's good they're still keeping with an expensive end credits as well. There's still money being spent on the end credits.
It feels like you ought to be able to like hop on top of these end
No,
credits,
no, you can.
just like jumping through
They
them.
kind of look cardboard like flat. You can just kind of tell where
Yeah.
the optical is, but
um. Wow, Faye Dunaway gets the lead credit.
I know.
They must have really sold this on her if they sold it at all. Although I always get the impression that there wasn't even a lot of an advertising campaign for this movie.
Um,
But I wasn't hardly born, so I don't
yeah,
know.
I mean, I have a clue, mate. Yeah, for me, I mean, I only saw literally that it was on TV quite a lot as a kid, but I mean, I'd watch it when it was on. I mean, I remember possibly seeing an X rental tape for it in the video shop, but it was never a big deal. I don't think. Maybe, I'm sure some of your listeners out there, may have been around when it came out and probably
Oh,
provide
sure, yeah.
some comments. But yeah, I don't think the marketing was as strong as Superman.
Like you said earlier, Goldsmith, man, his soundtrack sure makes it sound like this should have been a more epic film.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I absolutely love the soundtrack. I play it quite frequently, so it's yeah.
Listening to something like this, I just feel like I ought to be walking out of the theater like really, pumped up, rejuvenated, and it's not that kind of movie.
No, it's not. No, it's a great score that should be deserving of a better
This
film.
something more triumphant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, hopefully some of your listeners made it all the way through.
Yeah, leave a comment if you suffered through this all the way with us. And it was as long as I thought it was gonna feel, man. You know how sometimes we'll do commentaries and like we're really getting into something and we get to the end and we're like, wow, that was quick. This was not one of those. I don't know if you had that, but this felt like a slog.
Yeah, it was. There was moments during the commentary where I don't think I know what to say here, but it
Oh,
was
I know. I had
there
exactly the
was
same thing.
there's back and forth through it.
Yeah, I'm
So
sorry. I was stumbling
they
over my
make
words a little bit here and there because I was like, how do I phrase this in a way that won't sound exactly like I said it 10 minutes ago?
that's to summarize it basically. It's a confidently made movie in terms of its technical design and
For the
effects.
most part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the most part, the effects and the music and the performance. Yeah, you got good actors in it. You got good good production crew. But yeah, you got an inconsistent film. The tone is completely off. The script, doesn't work from the very start of the film. It falls apart, and that's unfortunately what makes a good film. If the script doesn't work, the film is going to be bad.
Yeah. And you can make a good like you can kind of make a good movie with not the greatest production values if you've got a great script, but it doesn't work the other way. Like we've all seen movies that still are pretty good because the story was really competent.
Yeah,
But you can't go the other way. You can't take great production values with a crappy script and make a good movie. It doesn't work.
exactly. I mean, I think you can put this film into a guilty pleasure category. It is. I think it's a guilty pleasure to most people that own it. They wouldn't put their hands up and say it's a great movie, but it's a guilty pleasure they watch now and again just to laugh at, or just for nostalgic value. And that's what.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say I find it kind of painful. I don't really like watching this movie, but I didn't grow up with it like you did. I don't have the nostalgia things. I mean, I can point to the things that work, but you got to twist my arm if I'm going to put this one in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or bribe someone with beer and food. Just watch it, please. Just watch it, please. Okay, give me some food. Give me some alcohol. I'll sit through it.
Well, Oliver, I'll watch anything with you, pal.
Oh, good, good, marvelous.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for listening to Geese Not Nerds, the podcast. We sure appreciate it. Oliver and I are going to be back sometime in the near future with a Man of Steel commentary, and I want to say that's kind of the last thing we've got to do, isn't it?
I think so. It's Man of Steel. I mean,
Superman-wise?
did people want to, hear us provide a commentary to the Donner Cut or Superman?
So the Donner Cut, yeah, I forgot we haven't done that. We did at one point say we would do that, so
Yeah.
I guess that's the other one.
Yes. Well, I mean, we can do Man of Steel next. I think there will probably be a lot more people wanting to hear our opinions again, possibly on Man of Steel.
Yeah, and that's not and that'll be really interesting because mine might have changed a little bit here and there on
Possibly
a few things.
me.
I don't. Yeah, so that's going to be a really interesting one. In fact, I don't mind admitting I have been terrified of watching it again. I haven't seen it since the theater. I bought it. I've not sat down and watched it again because I'm terrified I'm gonna like it a lot less than I did the first 3 times or the first 2 times, and I'm like, oh no, because I was in love with it and then I kind of am not sure if I still am. So anyway, that's going to be a really interesting viewing. I don't know if I'll watch it again before you and I sit through it, or if I'll let that be the next time I see it. I don't know yet. But anyway, well, thanks again everybody for listening, and that doesn't mean, by the way, that Oliver is not going to come back for potentially other things. Because I love doing these with you, Oliver. So we shouldn't have to just relegate it to Superman if there's something else
Oh,
we
you know,
decide we want to
exactly.
keep.
As Superman says, I'll always be around. So there you go.
That's great. Well, anyway, thanks again, folks. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Oliver. Bye.
We'll see you later.